Chapter 10:18. Shen Luo and was in a good mood when he saw the change in her expression. He looked at her and approached her step by step. Shen Manting looked at him approaching, and her face became paler and paler. She pushed back and shouted, "Sister Zhang, come here." I called Sister Zhang away. She shouldn't be outside now. The smile on his face widened. What are you afraid of? I won't do anything to you. Big brother, I'm getting married the day after tomorrow. What do you want? As the big brother, can't I come to see my sister who is about to get married? Shen Luo and stopped in his tracks and looked at Shen Manting's pale face. His heart sank. Am I that scary? Why do you have such a big reaction? Shen Manting had been forced into a corner, and the cold wall was behind her. At that moment, the distance between Shen Manting and Shen Luoan was less than a meter. As Shen Luoan spoke, his expression was calm. He approached her with a hint of malice. He leaned over, his hands still in his trouser pockets. Suddenly, his lips curved into a smile. Are you afraid that I'll do it again? His words undoubtedly poked at Shen Manting's sore spot. One more time. She had been 20 years old when old Mrs. Shen had brought her home. Poor and pitiful. He had accidentally intruded into his forbidden area and was almost torn to pieces by his Tibetan mastiff. He had saved her, but Shen Luo and noticed that Shen Manting's eyes were wandering. He chuckled and said, "You're actually thinking about it?" As he spoke, he reached out and placed his hand on the side of her face. In a low voice, he said, "Do you want me to remind you of that night?" No. Shen Manting suddenly panicked and pushed him away. You promised me, Shen Luo. I'm getting married soon. What else do you want? You were the one who chose me. I didn't even have the right to choose. Are you going to go back on your word now? He didn't give you the right to choose? Shen Luo raised his eyebrows and chuckled. Didn't I give you a choice? Li Xicheng, O Ming, and me. As for my two childhood friends, you don't like them, do you? Li Xicheng's wife was pregnant. You're my big brother, how could I possibly choose you? That was why she had chosen O Ming. Coincidentally, she had pinched O Ming's weak spot. She must marry O Ming the day after tomorrow. Otherwise, her life would be ruined. At the same time, footsteps could be heard from outside. It was Sister Zhang. Shen Manting was delighted and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Shen Luo clearly saw her expression and sensed that the footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. He smiled and straightened up, saying, "As your big brother, I just came to see you. Seeing that you are so lively, I am also relieved. You must prepare well and be the most beautiful bride." With that, Shen Luo really turned around and left. Sister Zhang walked in with a paper bag in her hand. She smiled and said, "Miss, you are so lucky. Young master is so good to you. He knows that you are so busy that you don't have time to eat, so he specially ordered your favorite dessert. Come, eat it while it's hot." Shen Manting stared blankly at the desserts that Sister Zhang had placed on the table. She asked, "Did he ask you to fetch something just now?" "Yeah." Sister Zhang put the dessert in front of her and said, "Come and try it." Shen Manting frowned and looked in the direction where he had left. She was getting more and more confused as to what he was thinking. This man was temperamental. Perhaps one day he would, hot little sweetheart, big CEO, don't come over. After one night of passion, they had disappeared for 5 years. When they met again, she didn't recognize him. Mr. Bo still forcefully adopted this little kitten that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. He doted on her, loved her, violated her, and did everything he could. Chapter 10:19. Sister Zhang saw her in a daze and urged, "Come on, eat something. When you are full, you can continue to work. In 2 days, you will be the most beautiful bride." Hearing Sister Zhang's words, Shen Manting smiled, picked up the spoon, and looked down. On the 22nd of December, Yu Lily had already started her holiday, but the plane ticket was booked for 4 a.m. on the 23rd. All day, Yu Lily had been painting in her room. However, she never expected that Su Qianxi would call her. Usually, Su Qianxi was very busy with work, taking care of the children, and having personal space with Li Xicheng, so Yu Lily usually did not talk to her. The two had not contacted each other for half a month. Seeing Su Qianxi's call, Yu Lily was a bit surprised. Holding a pen, she picked up the phone and quickly answered, "Hello? Lily, are you free tonight?" There was a child's voice on the other side of the phone. It sounded like they were chasing and playing. The little girl's voice was soft and sweet. Yu Lily's heart softened, and she nodded and said, "Yes, what's wrong? Let's have dinner together tonight. We haven't been together for a long time. I will take the children with me. They haven't seen you for a long time. Tonight?" Yu Lily glanced at her digital screen and nodded. "Okay, where to?" "Let's go to the place we often go." "I don't know any other places, okay?" The place we often go, it was Palace 1 under the O Group. O Ming also often went there. Yu Lily was a bit hesitant. When she was about to discuss with Su Qianxi about changing places, there came the cry of the child, "Mom." When Yu Lily heard his voice, it was as if a soft spot in her heart had been touched, and it immediately sank. Su Qianxi responded and said, "Then it's settled. Let's have dinner together at 7 p.m. Bye." Before Yu Lily spoke, Su Qianxi had already hung up the phone. "Forget it, let's go. It shouldn't be so coincidental, right?" Yu Lily ignored it and continued to paint. When it was almost 5 p.m., Yu Lily began to change clothes and put on makeup. It took about half an hour to get to Palace 1 by taxi. When Yu Lily arrived, it was exactly 18:53 in the evening. Palace number 1 was a combination of entertainment, dining, leisure, and so on. It was located in a key location and had gorgeous decorations. 1, 2, 3, 10. He leaned against the wall and counted. When he counted to 10, he straightened up, looked around, and shouted, "I'm going to start looking." "Okay." Li Jianyu hid behind the curtains. Her small figure could be seen clearly. Seeing this scene, Li Xicheng could not help but laugh. However, he deliberately looked around and pretended to be distressed. "My little baby, where are you?" When she heard her father's words, Li Jianyu shrank back and the curtains were flattened. The little girl's sweet voice called out, "Daddy, you won't be able to find me. I'm hiding." Li Xicheng laughed out loud and said, "Is that so? Where are you hiding then?" "I won't tell you. You have to find me yourself," Li Jianyu shouted. Her voice was a little smug. Chapter 10:20. Li Jianyu didn't make a sound. She shrank back, and shrank back. Li Xicheng swayed left and right, and suddenly the curtains were opened. Li Jianyu looked at Li Xicheng in horror. Her big eyes widened and she shouted, "Dad! Caught you!" Li Xicheng squatted down and held her in his arms. He rubbed her little head and said, "Dad will take you to wash your hands." Li Jianyu pouted in frustration and shouted, "Why did you find me again? Even Brother Mosen couldn't find me." Li Xicheng smiled. Li Mosen was smarter than any of them had imagined. With his IQ, how could he not find this little fool? He just gave in to her. However, even if Li Xicheng said it, this little girl would not believe it. He reached out and pinched her little nose and said, "Your brother Mosen has already washed his hands. You are the only one who is disobedient and playful. Do you still not keep your word?" Li Jianyu stuck out her little tongue and reached out to Li Xicheng. "Dad, hug." "Okay, hug." Li Xicheng picked up his daughter and took her to the bathroom to wash her hands. O Ming looked at the interaction between the father and daughter, full of envy. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen sat side by side, holding a Rubik's Cube in their small hands. Desu said, "Uncle, how do you get this red one? You see, yellow, blue, and green are all ready. You just need to get this red to white." Oh Ming put down the teacup, bowed his head and patiently explained, "You can't just focus on one side. If there is a little disharmony, this is not a complete Rubik's Cube. Come on, you first make this like this, like this." Li Jianxian and Li Mosen were both people with a particularly strong learning ability. The two little guys opened their eyes, looked at the Rubik's Cube in Oh Ming's hand, listened to his explanation, and nodded. Su Qianxi received a call from Yu Lily. She was bored anyway, so she simply stood up and went outside to pick her up. When she saw Yu Lily, Su Qianxi's eyes flashed with amazement, and she shouted, "Lily!" Yu Lily heard Su Qianxi's shout, smiled, and waved at Su Qianxi. "Qianqian." Su Qianxi quickly approached and looked at Yu Lily's current appearance. Compared to the last time Su Qianxi saw her, Yu Lily was plumper this time. The flesh on her face had also grown back, and she looked round and beautiful. Her skin was white and delicate, and her skin was tender and elastic. Today, Yu Lily was wearing a red dress and a long black coat. It didn't look like a famous brand, but it was a very stylish combination. In more than 2 months, Yu Lily's hair had been trimmed 2 or 3 times. Her short hair still reached her ears, making her look playful and capable. Her oval face was covered by her short black hair. Coupled with her exquisite makeup, she looked even more beautiful and alluring. "Wow, Lily, you've become so beautiful. We haven't seen each other for so long." Su Qianxi went up and took her arm. "Let's go. We were just waiting for you." Everyone liked to be complimented, especially by Su Qianxi. Yu Lily felt particularly happy. With a smile, she walked in with Su Qianxi. However, when she entered the door and saw Oh Ming, she paused. Oh Ming seemed to have sensed her gaze and looked up. Chapter 10:21. Ex-boyfriend seeing ex-girlfriend. Yu Lily felt inexplicably embarrassed at the moment. Was it a coincidence? Absolutely not. Yu Lily quickly looked away, looked at Su Qianxi, smiled, and said, "Qianqian, is he here too?" "Yes, of course, he is." Because it was Oh Ming who called her. However, Su Qianxi pretended to be stupid at the moment, intimately pulled Yu Lily in and said, "We are waiting for you. Is there anything in particular you want to eat?" "No." "Okay, then let's serve the dishes." Su Qianxi pulled her to sit down next to her and shouted, "Waiter, help us serve the dishes." Su Qianxi poured a cup of tea for Yu Lily and said, "How have you been recently?" Yu Lily took the tea, smiled, and said casually, "Very good, my boyfriend is also very good to me, much happier than before." Su Qianxi was speechless for a moment, subconsciously glancing at Oh Ming. She saw that Oh Ming was just drinking tea and did not speak. Li Xiqing came over with his daughter, sat next to Su Qianxi, and asked, "What do you want to eat?" "Chicken wings." "What else?" "Chicken legs." "What else?" "Crab." Li Jianhua shouted, looking at the empty table, pouted, and said, "Dad, hungry. There will be food in a while. Drink some juice first." Li Xiqing poured a glass of juice for the little girl and handed it over. "Drink slowly." "Oh." Li Jianhua took it with both hands, holding the juice with her short, fleshy hands. Li Xiqing looked at her, his hand under the glass. In case the little girl could not hold it firmly, he could catch it in time. Yu Lily saw the little girl's face, which looked very similar to Su Qianxi's, pink and tender, and her heart was about to melt. However, in her impression, Li Xiqing, who was cold and terrible, actually had such a soft side in front of his daughter. So envious, Yu Lily looked at the little girl and Li Xiqing, looked down, and took a sip of the tea. However, she did not look at Oh Ming again. The atmosphere was awkward. Su Qianxi winked at him from time to time, but he did not seem to understand and remained indifferent. The dishes were quickly served, and the children ate with relish, not noticing the strange atmosphere between the adults. "I heard that you took an early vacation and rested for almost 20 days. Oh Ming finally opened his mouth, but he didn't look at her. Instead, he lowered his head and ate slowly. It was obvious who he was talking to. Yes, Yu Lily replied. Traveling? Yes. Where to? I don't know. We'll see. Yu Lily smiled and took a sip of tea. Suddenly, she picked up the red wine glass next to her and reached out to O Ming. Master O, congratulations. You're getting married tomorrow. I wish you a happy wedding in advance. O Ming's eyes darkened. He picked up the glass of red wine and gently clinked it with Yu Lily's glass. Then, Yu Lily laughed and drank all the red wine in the glass. Cheers. Yu Lily stood up and said, I still have things to do. I'll go first. I can have a good time after I finish my work. Thank you for today, Qianqian. Su Qianxi was embarrassed. She didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but she felt that Yu Lily's thank you was sarcastic. Blushing, when she was about to speak, Yu Lily had already turned and left. Chapter 1022. The distance between O Ming and Yu Lily was always maintained at a moderate distance. Yu Lily didn't look back, but she was clearly aware that he was following her. Deliberately quickening her pace, Yu Lily went out the door. It was a little windy outside. As soon as she went out, the wind blew in fiercely, making her subconsciously wrap up her clothes. Seeing her like this, O Ming quickly walked forward. Yu Lily heard the subtle footsteps coming from behind, and she quickened her pace. Then, as if she had thought of something, Yu Lily suddenly stopped in her tracks and stood rooted to the ground. O Ming hadn't expected her to suddenly stop. Caught off guard, he rushed forward and bumped into her. Yu Lily was hit so hard that she groaned and almost fell forward. O Ming was quick to react. He reached out to grab her and held her firmly in his arms. Such a scene made people couldn't help but look at them. She could clearly feel the warmth of the strong arm that was wrapped around her waist. Yu Lily's heart was beating fast. She reached out, took his hand away, turned around, and looked at O Ming. The distance between the two was less than 20 centimeters. O Ming didn't expect that Yu Lily would face him like this. He looked at her eyes in a daze and couldn't help but be attracted to her. Yu Lily looked up at him. Her eyes were deep and beautiful, as if they were shrouded in a layer of silver light. She looked calm and serious as she said, O Ming, let's go to bed. O Ming was very surprised and thought he had heard wrong. He asked incredulously, what did you say? Yu Lily looked at him and didn't avoid his eyes. She was calm, but she still firmly said, let's go get a room. Such a bold request was not only beyond O Ming's expectation, but also Yu Lily began to doubt whether she was crazy. Seeing O Ming's eyes, the impulse in Yu Lily's heart decreased bit by bit. Yu Lily looked down and smiled gently. When she was about to say something, she heard O Ming's voice, yeah. Yeah. A simple single word made Yu Lily's heart slightly hurt. Without warning, the pain made her breathless. But he smiled and said, then you drive the car. I'll go buy something. O Ming frowned. After getting the car, he drove Yu Lily to the place she had told him to go. Stop. At the same time, O Ming stopped the car. She opened the door and said, wait a minute. With that, she got out of the car and entered a pharmacy. After about 7 or 8 minutes, Yu Lily came out with a bag in her hand. There were 2 glasses of milk in it. Let's go. Yu Lily smiled and sat in the front passenger seat. O Ming wasn't in a hurry to drive. He lit a cigarette and asked, are you serious? Yes. You can, now? She had done it with Shinjilia before, so she knew it was possible. That's why she sought him out? O Ming laughed coldly. Shinjilia couldn't satisfy you, so you came to me, right? Yu Lily's hand holding the bag slightly tightened, and the bag made a rustling sound. However, Yu Lily suddenly turned her head and smiled like a flower. Why did you ask if you knew? Don't you want to? O Ming's face suddenly darkened. He turned his head and looked at her like a raging storm, very gloomy. It seems that you really don't want to. Then I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. As she spoke, Yu Lily opened the car door and was about to get out. But she was stopped. Oh Ming locked the door and coldly said, "You need to F***CK. Chapter 1023. Oh Ming took Yu Lily to a local 5-star hotel in Kingstown, registered his ID card, and opened a room. As soon as Oh Ming entered the room, he took off his coat. Yu Lily followed behind and closed the door. Oh Ming took off his suit and said, "Do you want to take a shower first, or should I? Or, together?" However, Yu Lily did not respond. Oh Ming was a little surprised and turned around, but he was suddenly hugged. Yu Lily looked up at him, breathed quickly, and her body was hot. Her face was as red as a peach. Looking at him, Yu Lily stood on her tiptoes, hugged his neck, and kissed him on the lips. Yu Lily easily entangled him. She closed her eyes, and the heat in her body ignited the deepest and most hidden passion in her. Holding him tightly with both hands, Yu Lily couldn't help but whisper and shout, "Don't you want to start?" At that moment, Yu Lily's face was flushed, and her whole body was attached to his. She was slightly panting, and her breath smelled like orchids, which was seductive and sexy. Oh Ming did not expect that she actually took the medicine herself. Didn't she always refuse this kind of medicine? However, seeing how impatient she was, he decided not to suppress it any longer. He took the initiative, picked her up, and threw her on the bed. Yu Lily's body bounced, and she groaned. Then, she felt a hot body covering her. His fiery big hands peeled off her coat, and then he tore off her dress. Dense, hot kisses dotted her body. Yu Lily hugged him, moaned, and unbuttoned his vest, shouting, "Oh Ming!" Oh Ming did not respond to her, but fiercely and heavily sucked on her neck. The hot breath fell on her neck, and the burning feeling spread all over her body. Yu Lily hooked her legs and shouted, Mr. O, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you." Oh Ming breathed heavily, and his big hand clamped her chin. He chuckled and said, "What? Do you regret it?" Hearing that, Yu Lily opened her eyes and looked at him. His clothes were slightly messy, and his eyes were slightly narrowed, but he was very sober. His beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to be enshrouded in a layer of hazy silver, bright and resplendent. Yu Lily's eyes were blurred as she looked at him. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. Her face flushed, she smiled and said, "I don't regret it." He would never regret it. When Oh Ming heard that, he opened the zipper on her back, revealing her smooth and fair shoulders, which were round and tender. He lowered his head and kissed her, but it was full of aggression. He held her in a domineering manner. He seemed to have completely let go of her. Under his aggressive attack, Yu Lily narrowed her eyes. No regrets, no regrets. She had no room for regret. She wanted him, she loved him. Yu Lily couldn't lie to herself. For so many days, no matter how well Shinjilia had treated her, her mind was still filled with Oh Ming's shadow. Even Yu Lily herself felt that she was so cheap, but she missed him, but he was about to get married. How could this relationship, which was not supported or acknowledged by others, be allowed to continue? She hugged him back and slightly raised her head. There was an unknown tears flowing down from the corner of her eyes. Yu Lily opened her mouth to gasp and shouted, "Oh Ming! Have you loved me?" Chapter 1024. It was the first time Yu Lily had asked such a question. It was also the first time Oh Ming had heard it. It was strange and wonderful. It was as if he had met this person for the first time. Yu Lily would actually ask such a question. Oh Ming's eyes darkened. Looking at her flushed cheeks, he slightly raised his lips and was about to speak, but Yu Lily suddenly hugged his neck and sealed his lips. Before Oh Ming could say anything, he was hit by her hotness and disappeared without a trace. The king's sighs gently swayed with their movements, and Yu Lily's whole body was hot, and she twisted uncomfortably. Oh Ming panted heavily and whispered in her ear, "Love." Yu Lily's body stiffened, her hands wrapped around his neck, and she bit his shoulder. He said, "Love. Not love, but love." Is that true? But, the words that men say when they are driven by pleasure, can we believe them? After a rest, Ming pulled away, hugged her, and kissed her neck. Yu Lily slightly narrowed her eyes, gently pushed him away, and said, "I'm tired. Go take a shower." Ming paused, looked at her slightly tired face, and chuckled. He got up and went into the bathroom. Yu Lily opened her eyes, got up, and took out the 2 bottles of milk from the pharmacy. She opened one of the bottles and put a white pill in it. She closed the lid, shook it a few times, and then drank 2 mouthfuls of the other bottle. After Ming came out of the shower, Yu Lily handed the milk to him, holding a half-empty bottle in her hand. Ming happened to be a little thirsty, so he glanced at it, took the milk, and drank 2 mouthfuls. Seeing this, Yu Lily's eyes darkened. She stepped into the bathroom, and when she came out, Ming was already asleep, and the bottle of milk had been drunk. By the time Yu Lily got dressed, it was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. She gently kissed him on the lips and whispered, "Goodbye, Mr. O." This sleeping pill was enough for him to sleep until noon the next day. And she was already in the sky. Looking at his face greedily, Yu Lily lay down, picked up her phone, and took a photo. The last photo. This would be the last time they would see each other in this lifetime, right? Yu Lily's eyes were sore. She curled up beside him and gently hugged him. Her voice was choked and low like a mosquito. Goodbye. The sky was still dark when they boarded the plane. Everything was still in a hazy state, and the bustling big city was gradually getting farther and farther away. Yu Lily looked down at Kingstown, and her eyes gradually became empty. Yu Lily closed her eyes and leaned back in her seat, her mind blank. When Ming woke up, it was past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. When he got up, there was no one around. Ming felt a little dizzy. He patted his head and frowned. He felt like he was still dreaming. Everything around him was cold, and there was no sign of Yu Lily. Not only was there no shadow, there wasn't even a trace of his existence. Could it be that he was dreaming? An erotic dream left no trace. The phone was vibrating, and it was the special assistant, Su Cheng. Chapter 10:25. When Ming heard Su Cheng's words, he felt even more confused. He didn't know how to respond, so he just hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Ming found that there were dozens of missed calls. Shen Manting, his family, Su Cheng, and all kinds of unknown calls. The wedding started at 2 o'clock, and now it was 1 o'clock. If he went there now, it was still not too late. The timing was really good. It could not only make Shen Manting anxious, but it would not delay his wedding. It turned out that Yu Lily was so thoughtful. I really didn't expect it. However, Ming lay in bed and didn't want to move. The phone continued to vibrate, but Ming ignored it and lay on his back with his eyes closed. The deal with Shen Luo and was achieved. Shen Manting had never felt so desperate as today. Ming hadn't come yet, hadn't come yet, hadn't come yet. Countless calls were made, but no one answered. The scene was in chaos, all because of Ming. However, what made Shen Manting even more desperate was Shen Luo, who was sitting not far away and looking at her with a faint smile. She was even more furious. Shen Manting gritted her teeth and dialed Ming's cell phone number again and again. But the result was still the same. Shen Manting's eyes became redder. She walked into the temporary bridal room in the hotel and sat down. After driving everyone out, Shen Manting leaned on the sofa weakly. If Ming didn't come, then Shen Luo would never let her go. Absolutely, impossible. She looked down and found it was already 2:13. It was a mess outside, and the noise made Shen Manting's head buzz. How could it be? Bastard. Shen Manting's eyes were red, and she threw the phone in her hand. The phone was deformed. After a few jumps, it finally fell to the ground, and the screen was broken into a spider web. Such a temper is really not suitable for a bride. A teasing voice came in, and Shen Manting's body stiffened. She turned her head and saw Shen Luo and walking in slowly with his hands in his pockets. He looked like he was smiling, and it seemed that his eyes were filled with pity. Shen Manting saw him and suddenly stood up. She roared with red eyes, "Is it you, Shen Luo? You are so despicable. What's wrong with me? I'm not the one who ran away from the marriage. But you should be glad that you haven't gotten a marriage certificate. Otherwise, you will have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. It will be too embarrassing." Shen Manting breathed more quickly, and she was furious. She stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, it was Shen Luo's to her. Shen Luo and took the opportunity to pull her over. He placed her hand in front of his nose and sniffed it. He chuckled and said, "You want to hit me? That is treason." His casual words made Shen Manting feel even more humiliated, and tears welled up in her eyes. She was so embarrassed and angry that she forcefully pulled her hand back and roared, "Bullsh *T big brother, you pervert." Cheng would not treat his sister like Shen. Ming to Yang to up and said. Shen was that Shen. To Shen was very felt. Cheng was not to Yang. To. Ming. That to of to Shen to Ming to. Chapter 10:26. Shen Manting suddenly felt a sense of crisis in her heart. She pushed him hard, but he didn't move at all. Shen Luo and looked at Shen Manting in front of him and whispered, "Don't be afraid. Oh, Ming is not with you. I will give you happiness, just like last time." Shen Manting's eyes widened in horror. She pushed him away and shouted, "No." The sound of footsteps coming and going could be heard from outside, as well as the noise of the crowd. The gentle smile on Shen Luo and's face became more and more serious. He gently released her and said, "You can't know until you try." After that, he took 2 steps back, and the distance between them was a little bit. Then, the door was opened. Shen Manting didn't notice that someone was approaching. At this moment, the door was suddenly opened, and her heart skipped a beat. Then, seeing Shen Luo and's calm appearance, she knew that he must have noticed it and let her go. Yi Yuyu saw Shen Luo and Shen Manting's appearance inside and felt inexplicably strange. However, Shen Luo and's expression didn't seem to be different. Is it an illusion? Yi Yuyu was confused, but she didn't think much about it. She said, "Grandma asked you to go out." "Got it. We'll be there soon." Shen Luo smiled and looked at Yi Yuyu. His eyes were as usual, and there was nothing wrong with them. However, Shen Manting's heart was secretly guilty. If he wasn't a pervert, why would he only react to you, my sister? So, what about Yi Yuyu? If he is only interested in Shen Manting, then Yi Yuyu, as his real wife, is. The more Shen Manting thought about it, the more she felt that she was guilty. She looked at Yi Yuyu, and Yi Yuyu looked at her at the same time. She smiled at Shen Manting and said, "Aunt, let's go together." Shen Manting felt more and more guilty when she was called aunt. She nodded and didn't dare to look at her. She said, "Okay." Yi Yuyu took Shen Manting's arm and subconsciously glanced at Shen Luo. Shen Luo, on the other hand, looked calm and unperturbed. He looked no different from usual. Is it an illusion? Su Cheng's phone was full of calls, but he still couldn't find out where O Ming was. In the face of everyone's questions and expectations, Su Cheng could only remain silent and escape. However, just as he found a quiet place to rest, he received a WeChat message on his phone. It was O Ming. "Find out where you Lily went." Su Cheng saw this message and replied without thinking, "Japan, their editor-in-chief told me." O Ming did not reply. Looking at the message sent by Su Cheng, he was lost in thought. The most famous romantic city in the world was covered in white snow. Blonde men and women walked to and fro, wearing thick down jackets and hats that covered their bodies tightly. Yu Lily wrapped herself in the thick down, and even her breath was filled with white vapor, which made her shiver. Looking at the snowflakes falling from the sky, Yu Lily felt that the trip was not in vain. So beautiful. Picking up the phone, Yu Lily took pictures left and right. Looking at her red cheeks in the photo, Yu Lily smiled and quickly entered the nearby shopping mall. Chapter 1027. After eating, Yu Lily returned to the hotel. After a long flight, Yu Lily felt a little tired. But after taking a shower and lying down, she couldn't fall asleep. Her mind was full of messy thoughts, and even Yu Lily didn't know what she was thinking. She simply got up, took out the digital screen, plugged it in, and began to draw. The phone was not turned on, and Yu Lily didn't bring a computer with her. She didn't dare to go online, turn on the computer, or see any news about Oh Ming. It was already dark outside. At this time, Oh Ming should have just woken up. Or is he still in bed with Shen Manting? Yu Lily's hand holding the pen paused, but she couldn't calm down. What to draw? Putting down the pen, Yu Lily put on her clothes again and deliberately wrapped herself up. A red scarf and a red hat covered her face. After making sure she wouldn't get cold, she walked out of the hotel. At 8:00 in the evening, the nightlife in Paris had just begun. Yu Lily walked around and stopped on a path. There were many footprints on the thick snow, and on the bare trees, ice and snow piled up. It was much more spectacular than when it snowed in the capital. Unfortunately, it didn't snow in Kingstown. It seemed that she hadn't seen the snow with Oh Ming. What a pity. Master Oh, I checked. I didn't see Yu Lily on the flight to Japan. Su Cheng's voice was a little guilty, and he asked, what should we do now? Oh Ming's face became more and more serious. Find out if she is in the country. Yes. Su Cheng responded, and Oh Ming quickly hung up. After hanging up, Oh Ming still called his most reliable brother, Luo Zhan. Nothing was faster than directly hacking the system to find out. After going through the process, maybe Yu Lily had gone far? After calling Luo Zhan, he was silent for a moment and said, Brother, do you want to hurt me? That is the national security system. If I hack in, what if I get caught? I'll protect you. No, you'd better go through the process. Last time I helped Lao Air check the police, and I was almost caught. This time, you directly asked me to hack the national system. I don't have that much courage. With your skills, there is no problem. Luo Zhan, please. It's not that I'm helping you, it's too risky. You seem to like the mall in the south of the city, right? For you. Luo Zhan, Oh Ming's department store in the south of the city was the most profitable, and he actually gave it to him? Luo Zhan almost choked on his saliva and asked incredulously, what did you say? I said, help me investigate. I'll give you the department store in the south of the city. Luo Zhan almost knelt, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. I don't want the mall, but you can give me some shares to play with. Okay. Oh Ming agreed without hesitation. Hurry up. Luo Zhan was puzzled and asked, is it really urgent? Hurry. All right, wait for me. After Luo Zhan hung up the phone, he was clearly aware of the contemptuous eyes coming from the side. Luo Ran was eating when he saw him hang up the phone. He said leisurely, if I had known that being a hacker was so lucrative, I wouldn't have majored in psychology. It would have been much better to focus on technical skills. It's too late. Luo Zhan put down the phone and stopped eating. He said, remember to wash the dishes later. I have to go. Chapter 1028. While Luo Zhan was investigating, Oh Ming didn't relax. He went to the house where Yu Lily was living and found Yi Qianqian. When Yi Qianqian saw him, she recognized him at a glance. She crossed her arms and teased, hey, isn't this Mr. O who's running away from his wedding? What are you doing here? Running away from your wedding and coming to our house? His tone was a little bitter and impolite. Oh Ming pursed his lips and looked at her. Do you know where Yu Lily went? I don't know, Yi Qianqian replied and prepared to close the door. However, Oh Ming reached out and blocked the door. He asked again, where did she go? Who knows? Maybe it's Korea. She looked at Oh Ming and smiled. Isn't it a little late for you to come looking for me now? I don't even know where Lily is. Didn't you go to Japan? Oh Ming looked at her, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Seeing this, Oh Ming was even more certain in his heart. You Lily went to Japan. Yi Qianqian averted her gaze and sneered, it's none of your business. With that, he slammed the door shut. He quickly turned around and asked Su Cheng to book the fastest ticket to Japan. He went back to get his passport and rushed to the airport without even unpacking his luggage. He boarded the plane. It took more than 5 hours to fly from Kingstown to Japan. Japan was 1 hour faster than China. It was noon in Kingstown, but by the time they arrived in Japan, it was already evening. As soon as he got off the plane and turned on his phone, he received a message from Luo Zhan, as well as countless missed calls. He clicked on the text message sent by Luo Zhan and saw the place at first glance, Paris. Yu Lily slept until dawn. As soon as she got out of bed, she turned on her phone. After turning it on, he noticed that there were a lot of missed calls. A few dozen belonged to Oh Ming, a dozen belonged to Yi Qianqian, and 30 to 40 belonged to Shinjilia. The rest were Su Cheng, Su Qianxi, and editor-in-chief Zhou. Yu Lily was inexplicably surprised. There were so many people looking for her. Why? Other than phone calls, there were also many short messages. Qianqian, where are you? I've been looking for you for a long time. Qianqian, call me when you see it. Shinjilia, she actually went to Japan without telling me. That's too much. Shinjilia, Qianqian has told me everything. Where are you in Japan? I'll find you. Shinjilia, in any case, I'm still your boyfriend. How dare you act first and report later? You deserve a beating. I'll teach you a lesson when I find you. Shinjilia, big sis, why haven't you switched on your phone yet? Don't you know that turning off your phone isn't a good habit? Shinjilia, I think I know where you are. Wait for me. Don't go away. Chief Editor Zhou, is Japan fun? Chief Editor Zhou, don't forget to submit the manuscript. Special Assistant Su, miss you, where are you? Special Assistant Su, young Master O is very worried about you. Can you give me a message as soon as possible? Yi Qianqian, Lily, what should we do? It seems that Oh Ming knows you went to Japan. Yi Qianqian, but it should be fine. Japan is huge. It's not like we'll bump into each other, right? Yu Lily read through them one by one, and her lips curled up. He replied to Yi Qianqian, I'm not in Japan. I'm in France. Chapter 1029. Yi Qianqian, that guy seems to know that I know you are in Japan. Do you think he has already gone to Japan? Ha 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 ha. Yu Lily smiled and was about to reply, but when her finger just touched the screen, she suddenly received a call. As soon as the phone came out, the answer button was immediately pressed. Yu Lily was a little confused. Looking at the call interface, she suddenly felt a little confused. Shinjilia's voice came through the phone. Yu Lily had no choice but to pick up the phone. Shinjilia's voice came through the phone, and he shouted, Lily, where are you? Isn't your sister married? How do you know that I am not in China? Yu Lily sat on the bed and felt a little helpless. Don't say it. I don't dare to stay at home now. Where are you? France. Where is France? I will find you. No need. I will just play here for a few days, it doesn't matter. Just tell me the address, and I will find you. Shinjilia did not hear Yu Lily's reluctance at all. It just happens that I haven't taken a vacation for a whole year. It's a good time to play. No need. You find a place to play by yourself. That's all. Goodbye. Yu Lily hung up the phone and then breathed a sigh of relief. Shinjilia called again, and Yu Lily directly hung up. But soon, she received another call. Oh Ming. She hung up the phone and put his number on the blacklist. Then, she went to wash up. After going downstairs to eat, Yu Lily went out the door. It was very cold that day, very cold. There were pedestrians talking and laughing with each other. Everyone's mouth was emitting white steam, but everyone looked so happy. Yu Lily unconsciously walked into a ski resort and was pulled in by an auntie who sent a flyer. After paying, Yu Lily put on ski boots and started to ski on her own. However, Yu Lily did not dare to move too much. She saw many people talking and laughing while skiing, and her eyes were full of envy. Perhaps it was because she was alone and pitiful, or because her black eyes and yellow skin were special. A woman who looked to be in her early 30s came to Yu Lily. She was very beautiful and spoke French that Yu Lily did not understand. However, Yu Lily finally realized that she wanted to teach her how to skate. Yu Lily nodded happily and began to learn with her. A&M was a very cheerful girl. She came here with her boyfriend. Although Yu Lily couldn't understand what she was saying, neither could she understand what Yu Lily was saying. Using the translation software, they chatted happily. The day passed quickly. In the afternoon, Yu Lily learned that her name was A&M. For lunch, A&M treated her to local delicacies. For dinner, of course, Yu Lily had to return the favor. Yu Lily took her to the hotel where she was staying for dinner. She looked at the way they were leaning on each other and felt a little envious. Soon, A&M went back with her boyfriend. They blew each other a kiss, but didn't leave any contact information. When Yu Lily returned to the hotel, she needed to swipe her card to enter the elevator. As soon as she walked up the steps, Yu Lily lowered her head and fumbled for the key card. However, before he could pass through the lobby, he saw a man standing not far away from him. He was wearing a dark suit with a black coat and a dark gray scarf around his neck. However, it still looked a little thin in such weather. Yu Lily was shocked to see the man. Chapter 1030. Seeing the man's face, Yu Lily's heartbeat sped up involuntarily. Yu Lily turned around and walked out quickly. Unfortunately, the man had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing that Yu Lily wanted to run away again, a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes suddenly narrowed. He quickly stepped forward and reached out to hold Yu Lily's hand. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She struggled hard, but she quickly remembered something. She turned her head and smiled like a flower, like an old friend she hadn't seen for a long time. What a coincidence. You're here, too. Oh Ming saw her smile and felt it was even more dazzling. His eyes darkened, and he pulled her back and said, "Unfortunately, I am here for you." Hearing that, the smile on Yu Lily's face could no longer be pretended. Yu Lily pulled her arm hard and frowned. She was very resistant to pulling her arm back, but Oh Ming still held it tightly and didn't let go. Yu Lily was very angry. She looked at him and sneered, "What are you doing? Aren't you married? Are you pestering your old lover now?" Oh Ming looked at her, grabbed her, and slowly said, "No one has ever dared to run away after sleeping with me." "Yu Lily, you are good." "Ha, who is sleeping with who? You are obviously having a better time than me." Yu Lily roared. "Let go. If you don't let go, I will scream. Go ahead and scream. Let's see who can understand what you are saying." Oh Ming's lips curled up into a bad smile. "You can really run away. You lied to me to go to Japan. Do you know how many flights I had to take to get here?" Yu Lily heard that and felt a chill in her heart. This guy really came here to find me. But, how did he know I was here? Yu Lily saw the evil smile on his face and felt inexplicably a little flustered. She desperately stepped back and struggled to break away from his hand. She shouted, "It's none of my business. You can go wherever you want. You are so old, and your wife doesn't care about you. Since you can't control yourself, shenmanting is not to be trifled with. I'm not married." Oh Ming pulled her back and said in a low voice, "I'm thinking about how to punish you." "Not married?" Yu Lily was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Is that true? Your wedding was so grand. How could there be no marriage? I said that I wouldn't marry her. We didn't get our marriage certificate, and we didn't have a wedding. Oh Ming looked at her with a serious expression. As for you, Lily, she looked at him for a while and sneered, so what? Do you think that I will be with you when you're not married? I have a boyfriend now. Who do you think you are? Oh Ming's face finally darkened. His big hand grabbed her wrist, and his face was indescribably gloomy. Seeing this, the sarcasm in Yu Lily's eyes deepened, and she sneered, "What's the point of following you? Isn't it just a mistress? If I'm with Shinjilia, at least I'm his girlfriend, the official kind. Please let go, Mr. O." Yu Lily. Oh Ming finally couldn't take it anymore. The two of them were in the lobby of the hotel. Chapter 1031. The crowd was looking at them, and Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed. She lowered her head and said, "You'd better let go. If you don't, I'll scream." Enough. Oh Ming lowered his voice as if he was dealing with an ignorant child. Which room do you live in? Does that mean I have to live in the same room with her? Bah. Yu Lily's face changed, and she turned her head and shouted, "Savim, I don't know what." Oh Ming's face was even more ugly, and he covered her mouth. Yu Lily struggled hard, her hands flailing, and she looked unwilling. Facing the eyes around him, Oh Ming's face was very interesting. He smiled and said in fluent French, "She is my girlfriend. It's just a quarrel. It's okay." Yu Lily heard the French and looked at him with wide eyes. This guy actually knew how to speak French. Oh Ming looked at her, hugged her hard, dragged her into the elevator, and said, "Let's go up first." However, Yu Lily's struggle was getting farther and farther away, and soon it attracted the attention of the security guard. The security guard ran up with a stick in his hand and shouted, "Hey, hey." Oh Ming stopped and looked at the eyes around him helplessly. The security guard went forward and hit Oh Ming's hand with the stick. It was not light or heavy, but it still hurt a little. After releasing his hand, Yu Lily immediately ran away. Her face was red because of his hand, and she hid behind the security guard. Oh Ming raised his hands and said helplessly, "She is my girlfriend, and we quarreled." Then he reached into the inside pocket of his coat and took out a business card. "This is my business card. I am a friend of your hotel owner." The security guard took the business card, and it was all in English. He didn't understand it, so the security guard looked at her suspiciously, pulled him, and said, "Come here." Yu Lily saw Oh Ming being pulled to the front desk, and she quietly walked toward the elevator. Oh Ming turned his head and said something to the security guard. The security guard turned to look at Yu Lily, waved at her, and said something that Yu Lily couldn't understand at all. Yu Lily refused, and after swiping the elevator, she was pulled by the security guard and walked toward Oh Ming. When Oh Ming saw the security guard tugging at her down jacket, his face darkened. He said, "Don't pull me." In Wuxia, this is called sexual harassment. When the security guard heard that, he immediately let go. Oh Ming registered his information at the front desk and booked a room. "Sir, may I know your phone number first?" Oh Ming turned his head and told her the number, but when he turned his head, he found that Yu Lily had already wandered to the door. Seeing her run away, Oh Ming narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Yu Lily, come back." But when Yu Lily heard that, her body stiffened and she ran outside. Oh Ming had a headache and chased after her. It was a world of ice and snow outside, and everything was covered in pure white. The ice on the ground was very slippery, and Yu Lily almost fell several times. But when she turned her head and saw Oh Ming chasing after her, she didn't dare to stop. What was he trying to do? Why did she run? I don't know. But she did not want to see him, did not want to be with him. Although she was secretly happy that he said he was not married, she still needed to verify whether he was married or not. Looking back and seeing Oh Ming chasing after her, Yu Lily walked faster, but her foot was slippery, and she fell on the ice. Oh Ming followed and saw that she was wet, so he smiled helplessly. Dash. Chapter 1032. He walked quickly toward her. Yu Lily saw his footsteps coming and quickly wanted to get up. Just as she got up, her feet slipped again, and she fell down again. Oh Ming went forward and lifted her up under her armpits. Seeing her dressed like a dumpling, he said with a smile, "Fortunately, you are wearing thick clothes, or you will hurt." Oh Ming patted the snow on her body and looked at her helplessly. "It's cold outside. Let's go back to the hotel and talk." He looked like he was coaxing a child. "What the hell?" Yu Lily's face became serious. She turned around and said, "I have nothing to say to you. You can go. I came to find you, and I will take you with me." "To find me?" Yu Lily's heart fluttered. She turned her head and sneered, "Why do you want to find me? I am not your wife." But after saying that, Yu Lily felt a strong sense of jealousy. What the hell? She turned her head and saw Oh Ming with a faint smile on his face. Yu Lily wanted to bite her tongue, but soon, she put on a straight face and said, "Sure enough, Qian is right. You are a scumbag. On the one hand, you don't let go of your old mistress, and on the other hand, you are reluctant to give up the Shen family." Bah! Oh Ming was even more helpless. He frowned and reached out to pinch her nose. He said, I said I am not married. How many times do I have to say it to make you understand?" Yu Lily slapped his hand away irritably and said angrily, "Hey, I don't believe it. If you want to break off the engagement, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? Go back and talk slowly. I am so cold." Oh Ming hugged his arms and looked like he was freezing. He said, "I haven't eaten yet. I have been waiting for you all afternoon. Take me to eat something. Go away. Go by yourself. It's none of my business." Yu Lily looked at him and shook his hand off. "I have a boyfriend now. He is coming. If he sees us, it will be bad." Oh Ming's heart sank again. What little patience he had had was almost worn out. His face was not very good. He said, "Break up with him and be with me. I will marry you." It was a domineering order, but the last 3 words made Yu Lily's body stiffen again. In this kind of situation, saying those 3 words was like giving alms to her. Yu Lily turned around and glared at Oh Ming. She pushed him away and turned to walk in the other direction of the hotel. The road was very slippery, and one had to be careful when walking. Otherwise, one could fall at any time. Being pushed, Oh Ming almost slipped, but he quickly steadied himself. However, Yu Lily had already run more than 10 meters away. Sigh. Oh Ming felt a headache coming on. When this woman became stubborn, she was like a crab. "You, stop." But Yu Lily didn't listen. She turned her head and shouted, F***CKU. "Who wants you to marry me? You be *TCH, I don't want you." "Yu Lily. Stop." Oh Ming was so cold that he was shivering. He chased after her with cold breath. "I have a secret to tell you." "Really, wait for me." Yu Lily didn't listen at all. She just went into a coffee shop. Oh Ming chased after her. The coffee shop was so warm that he sighed. When he looked for Yu Lily again, she was gone. Chapter 1033. Looking at the back door on the side, Oh Ming sighed heavily again. He walked out of the back door and looked around, but he didn't see Yu Lily. He shouted, "Yu Lily." No one answered. Instead, many French people looked in Oh Ming's direction. Oh Ming breathed, looked up, and saw Yu Lily walking near the amusement park in front of him. This woman, how old is she to play hide and seek with me? Oh Ming walked toward the amusement park with his long legs. Yu Lily seemed to notice that he was chasing her, so she ran again. When Oh Ming saw that, he took big strides and chased after Yu Lily. When he caught up with her, he found that she had disappeared again. "I'm starving." Oh Ming hadn't eaten all day, and now he ran such a long circle. He was hungry, sleepy, and cold. Oh Ming decided not to run anymore and stopped. He picked up his mobile phone and called Yu Lily. As expected, he couldn't get through. He called Luo Zhan and said, "Keep an eye on the registration of Yu Lily's passport. If there is any movement, inform me." After hanging up the phone, Oh Ming returned to the hotel where Yu Lily was just now. He ordered something to eat first and sat in the lobby, waiting for Yu Lily to come back. It was impossible for Yu Lily not to return to the hotel. The more she avoided him, the more he had to stay there. However, before Yu Lily could get there, an unexpected but unsurprising person came to visit. When Shinjilia saw Oh Ming, he sneered and put his luggage at hand. He was not in a hurry to get a room, but he called Yu Lily in front of Oh Ming. When Yu Lily received the call from Shinjilia, she was still hiding in the coffee shop outside. When she saw it was Shinjilia, she immediately picked up, "Hello?" Shinjilia looked at Oh Ming and said to Yu Lily on the phone, "Which room are you staying in?" Hearing that, Yu Lily was shocked and suddenly asked, "Are you in Paris?" "Yes, I also arrived at the hotel where you are staying." "How do you know?" "I didn't tell you." Yu Lily exclaimed and couldn't believe it. "Yi Qianqian told me. I'm already at the hotel. Come and pick me up." Shinjilia's words made Oh Ming's eyes narrow dangerously, and he looked at him unkindly. Compared to Oh Ming, Shinjilia appeared calm and unperturbed. He looked at Oh Ming and sneered, "Why are you here? Are you chasing after my girlfriend?" "Shinjilia, I didn't expect you to run away from the marriage. You're a bastard, a coward." Shinjilia looked at him coldly. "If you can't give my sister a future, why did you provoke her? Now you're pestering Lily. Are you crazy? It's none of your business, but I advise you to break up with Yu Lily as soon as possible. You won't have a happy ending. It has nothing to do with you. Yu Lily is my girlfriend now. Who do you think you are?" Shinjilia smirked. "I'm sharing a room with my girlfriend. It's not up to you to decide what happens." Oh Ming's face suddenly darkened. He gritted his teeth and took a step forward. He raised his hand and punched Shinjilia's cheek. Shinjilia didn't expect him to suddenly attack. He was not prepared for it, and the punch hit his face. Shinjilia took 2 steps back before he stopped. Chapter 1034. Just as Shinjilia was about to retaliate, he heard Yu Lily's footsteps behind him. Yu Lily's footsteps were easy to recognize. Shinjilia paused and looked at Oh Ming with a sneer. "You're already married, yet you're still trying to be a third party. Don't you feel ashamed? Do you really think Lily still likes you? I'm the only one in her heart now. As for you, just take good care of my sister, brother-in-law." They were all married people. Brother-in-law. Sure enough, Oh Ming was already married, right? She knew that if Oh Ming wanted to break off the engagement, he would have done so long ago. Why wait until now? Yu Lily's footsteps were getting slower and slower. When she heard this, she stopped, panting slightly. Oh Ming narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous aura emanated from him. "Shinjilia, you know." Shinjilia acted as if he hadn't heard Oh Ming's words. He turned around and saw Yu Lily in a red down jacket. She wore a lot of clothes and looked like a dumpling. Shinjilia's face hurt, but when he saw her expression, he couldn't help but curl his lips and say affectionately, "You're back. Where did you go?" Yu Lily didn't answer. Instead, her gaze fell on his face. A bruise suddenly appeared on Shinjilia's originally fair and clean face. It looked swollen. Needless to say, it must have been Oh Ming. Yu Lily turned her head and glared at Oh Ming. She scolded, "Oh Ming, are you crazy? If you want to go crazy, you can just go crazy in China. Why are you going crazy in Paris?" Oh Ming's expression became even more unsightly. That punch didn't make him feel any better. Instead, it made him feel even more aggrieved. Yu Lily's eyes were filled with guilt. She reached out to touch Shinjilia's face and asked softly, "Are you okay?" Shinjilia shook his head and said, "I'm fine. It doesn't hurt." "How can it not hurt? It's green." The guilt in Yu Lily's eyes deepened, and she glared at O Ming angrily. Barbaric. When O Ming heard that, he laughed in anger and said, "Yu Lily, what kind of attitude is that? You actually sided with this guy and scolded me? Are you blind or deaf? Can't you see my attitude?" Yu Lily wasn't polite at all. She immediately said in an angry voice, "Get lost, okay? I don't want to see you at all. I've never seen anyone as annoying as you. Forget it, Lily." Shinjilia reached out and gently held Yu Lily in his arms. "We don't own the hotel, and Paris doesn't belong to us. He can go wherever he wants to go. Let's go back and put my things in the room first." Yu Lily was stunned. From his tone, it seemed that he wanted to stay in the same room as her. That's not a good idea, right? When Shinjilia saw her like this, he rubbed his bruised cheek and said, "Can you help me with a hot compress? It really hurts a little." Yu Lily looked at the wound and sighed in her heart. She nodded and led Shinjilia to the elevator. O Ming's face darkened. He sneered and said, "Now, are you bringing all the men into your room? You just had sex with me 3 days ago. What did you say before that? Why don't you tell your boyfriend?" Yu Lily's back stiffened. Facing Shinjilia's gaze in front of her, she felt as if she had been stripped naked. It was indescribably embarrassing. Chapter 1035. Yu Lily turned her head and frowned. She looked at O Ming and shouted, "Shut up." O Ming didn't seem to notice her anger. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, and he stepped closer to her. He said word by word, "So, one is an emotional dependence, and the other is a physical release, right?" "Shut up." Yu Lily was so angry that her eyes were red. She reached out and was about to hit O Ming. However, O Ming grabbed her arm and pulled her back. In a low voice, he said, "I didn't know that the woman I slept with for so many years was so greedy and scheming. Young Master Shen, do you want this kind of woman?" Yu Lily felt very embarrassed. Her eyes were red. She tried to withdraw her arm, but it was held tightly. When Shinjilia heard this, he laughed out loud. There was no displeasure on his face. He held Yu Lily's hand and looked at O Ming at the same time. "She is the woman I chose. No matter what, I can't let others take advantage of her. Brother-in-law, please let go. We have to go back to the room to sleep." O Ming didn't expect Shinjilia's attitude. He laughed and said, "Really? But after she tried me, I'm afraid she won't be used to being with you. You don't have to worry about that. We will solve our own problems, Anne. She and I are very harmonious. At least, when she faces me, she will not be frigid." Because they had never done it at all. He didn't know whether Yu Lily would be frigid. When O Ming heard that, his face darkened. In an instant, the two of them confronted each other. There seemed to be an invisible war going on between O Ming and Shinjilia. They were fighting each other subconsciously, and they were equally matched. "Let go." Yu Lily's eyes were redder, and her voice was choked with a little unhappiness. "I know how I am. Since you want to compare, you can compare. I won't play with you." Every word that came out of their mouths seemed to be deliberately humiliating Yu Lily. This was especially true for O Ming. Every sentence he spoke was ruthlessly slashed down, bringing with it traces of blood. Every slash was fatal. Seeing her like this, O Ming's heart trembled, and he quickly let go of her. Shinjilia naturally took her hand and said, "Goodbye." With that, he held Yu Lily's hand in his left hand and carried his suitcase in his right as he walked toward the elevator. Yu Lily took out the key card, swiped the elevator, and turned to look at O Ming before stepping into the elevator. O Ming looked at their backs, and something in his heart suddenly fell, causing him to sit down on the sofa. They were really together. Originally, Ming was still holding on to his wishful thinking, but now that he had seen it with his own eyes and heard it with his own ears, all the wishful thinking had been crushed by reality, leaving no trace. Yu Lily had originally planned to live alone, so she had only booked a standard room. Seeing Shinjilia pull his suitcase in, Yu Lily's heart was pounding. She looked at Shinjilia and asked, "Do you really intend to stay here?" When Shinjilia heard that, he turned his head to look at her. With a bright smile, he asked, "Can't I?" "No, of course not." Yu Lily looked at Shinjilia and frowned. She looked at him and said, "Shinjilia, you know, I don't like you." Chapter 1036. Hearing this, Yu Lily paused for a moment. Then, she bit the bullet and nodded. "It doesn't matter." Shinjilia walked toward her and quietly approached her. "I don't mind." Yu Lily resisted and took a step back, avoiding his eyes, and said, "You'd better get another room to sleep." I don't want to sleep with you." This should be direct enough, right? But, is it too direct? Yu Lily didn't dare to look up at him and waited for his answer. However, Shinjilia didn't speak for a long time. On the contrary, Yu Lily couldn't help but look up at him. Shinjilia's expression was calm, and he looked no different from his usual self. However, at that moment, his big, round, and clear eyes seemed to have a deeper meaning. Seeing Yu Lily look up at him, he stepped closer and said, "You were with him 3 days ago?" Yu Lily looked up at him and didn't speak. "That day was the day before my sister's wedding, right?" Yu Lily looked away and didn't answer him directly. "Have you seen the news recently?" Shinjilia looked at her with a cold look. No. She didn't dare to look at him. She was afraid that if she saw him too happy, she wouldn't be able to control herself. Shinjilia slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "The wedding was very successful, but he came to Paris to find you during the honeymoon. If you had a little self-awareness, you would have driven him back and let him stay with Shin Manting. In this way, he wouldn't pester you." Yu Lily bowed her head and said, "Well, I know. You go and get a room. I want to sleep." Shinjilia looked at her and chuckled. "I was just a shield, and then I was useless?" Shinjilia didn't want to leave at all. He still stood in front of Yu Lily, lifted her face, and said, "I'm your boyfriend, and I'm sleeping in the same room with you. Why can't I?" "Shinjilia, you knew I would be like this. Why did you come to me? Then why did you sleep with him a few days ago when you knew he was married?" Yu Lily was rendered speechless by his question. After a long pause, he finally said, "I didn't know that he would chase after me. After I came to Paris, I planned to find a small mountain village to settle down in, and then I wouldn't go back. Who knew that Ming would find her? She had no idea that Shinjilia would come knocking on her door. Their appearance had disrupted all her plans." Shinjilia stared at her and said word by word, "Yu Lily, you still can't let him go, can you?" Yu Lily was silent. Shinjilia knew that it wasn't something that could be easily let go of. However, he still felt uncomfortable. Shinjilia lifted her face and asked, "Why can he, but I can't?" "Shinjilia, thank you for treating me so well. So, you're giving me the good guy card? You're going to tell me to scram after you're done, right?" Shinjilia looked at her and suddenly sighed. "Yu Lily, isn't it a little unfair for you to do this?" Yu Lily slapped his hand away and did not speak, but her eyes were full of apology. Shinjilia stared at her for a long time and said, "Forget it. I'll move out. You have a good rest." Yu Lily's face had a hint of relief. Looking at Shinjilia turning around, she felt lucky. However, Shinjilia suddenly turned around, stepped forward, held Yu Lily's face in his hands, bowed his head, and kissed her. Chapter 1037. She stared at Shinjilia in front of her in disbelief. Seeing that his eyes were also wide open, Yu Lily couldn't help but resist. Shinjilia was slightly surprised and raised his eyebrows. The unexpected softness on his lips, with a faint aroma of coffee, was like smooth and tender jelly. Yu Lily tasted better than he had imagined. But before he had time to taste it carefully, Yu Lily pushed him away with both hands. In front of him, Yu Lily was so angry that she was short of breath. Shinjilia saw this and smiled brightly. Interest. After that, he opened the door and walked out. The whole room was so quiet. Yu Lily saw that Shinjilia's luggage seemed to be still in the room. It was just a light kiss, but it made Yu Lily feel uncomfortable for no reason. She didn't know why she felt uncomfortable. She pursed her lips and turned into the bathroom. Oh Ming had also kissed her, but the feeling was completely different. After turning on the water, Yu Lily wiped her mouth with the cold water. She rinsed several mouthfuls of water in a row, but the discomfort did not ease. Instead, it became worse. In the mirror, Yu Lily's face was covered with water. The water was a little cold. Yu Lily lowered her eyes, dried her face, and went out. She opened the door and saw Shinjilia coming from afar. After pushing his suitcase out, she went in and locked the door. Seeing this, Shinjilia chuckled and pulled his suitcase into the room opposite Yu Lily's. It was a quiet night. Yu Lily slept for 3 or 4 hours, and she couldn't fall back asleep. Her mind was full of thoughts. She got up and painted all night. Yu Lily didn't lie down until the sky outside was bright. While she was in a daze, the doorbell kept ringing. She looked through the peephole and saw it was Shinjilia. Yu Lily didn't open the door and said, "I am sleeping. Don't wake me. I will continue to sleep." "Well, then remember to get up for breakfast." Yu Lily ignored him, turned around, and continued to sleep. Outside, when Shinjilia turned around, he saw Oh Ming looking at him from afar. Oh Ming raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at him, and laughed out loud. "Didn't you say that a couple should sleep in the same room? This is a room." Shinjilia didn't expect Oh Ming to live near this corridor. He smiled and said calmly, "She wasn't ready yet, so I waited for her." After all, men always have to be patient with women, don't they? Hearing this, Oh Ming was in a better mood. He nodded and said, "That's right. I didn't expect young Master Shin to be such a gentleman. It's a good thing. You flatter me." Shinjilia smiled. Just as he was about to say something, Oh Ming opened the door and walked into the room. The smile on Shinjilia's face suddenly disappeared. He looked at Yu Lily's door thoughtfully. When she woke up, it was already noon. Yu Lily's stomach was growling. She got up and was washing up when she heard the doorbell ringing. Yu Lily wiped the foam off her face with a towel and looked through the peephole. It was a hotel attendant. Opening the door, the waiter pushed the dining cart in. On the dining cart, there was a note with bold and forceful handwriting, "Enjoy your meal." This was Oh Ming's handwriting. Did Oh Ming know where she was? Opening the lid, there was a simple cheese sandwich and a bottle of milk. Chapter 1038. After the waiter pushed the dining cart in, he bowed slightly to Yu Lily and said in poor Chinese, "Please enjoy." "Thank you." Yu Lily put down the lid and looked at the breakfast. She was not in a good mood. After eating breakfast listlessly, she looked at the time and found it was almost 12 o'clock. Today was a sunny day in Paris, and it was bright outside the window. After Yu Lily put on her clothes, she took a small bag and went out. The tallest building in Paris, the Eiffel Tower. Yu Lily was careful all the way, for fear of meeting Shinjilia or Oh Ming. Thank God, they didn't seem to notice her. After taking a taxi to the Eiffel Tower, Yu Lily bought a ticket and went inside. There were a lot of people, but compared with the legendary crowds, Yu Lily felt it was bearable. Yu Lily lined up and took the elevator. She looked out of the sightseeing elevator. Finally, almost all the people came in, and the elevator door was closed. There were a lot of people squeezed in, but it was not crowded. The elevator gradually rose, and Yu Lily looked out at the white sky that was gradually rising. Her eyes were glued to it. So beautiful. The scenery on the ground gradually moved away, which was a completely different feeling from sitting on a plane. There seemed to be someone squeezing behind her, but Yu Lily clearly felt it, but she didn't care. Her eyes looked out, and it was too much for her eyes to see. Beautiful? A low voice sounded in her ear, and Yu Lily's body was stiff, and the smile on her lips slightly froze. Looking sideways, she saw a thick black coat with a dark gray scarf. His skin was a little yellow compared to those white people next to him, but it was a very healthy buckwheat color. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and was met with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. It's him. Oh Ming lowered his eyes to look at her. Then, he looked up at the vast expanse of white outside. It's so beautiful. Yu Lily looked at Oh Ming in a daze, but she quickly retracted her gaze, looked outside, and nodded her head. The elevator stopped halfway, but Yu Lily and Oh Ming didn't get off. Yu Lily clearly noticed that Oh Ming's hand was slightly close to her waist. Yu Lily was stiff, turned around, and looked at Oh Ming. Oh Ming looked at her and smiled. You lied to me. Yu Lily didn't understand. She swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue and looked at Oh Ming with surprise. You and Shinjilia are not a couple, are you? They did not sleep together. There was nothing between the two of them, right? If Yu Lily accepted him, no matter what, Shinjilia would never sleep across from her. If Yu Lily accepted him, even if she didn't want to let Shinjilia touch her, she would let him have sex with her. Thinking of this, Oh Ming's eyes were burning. He looked at Yu Lily, took a step closer, put his hands on the bulletproof glass behind her, and whispered, "Stop it. Come back with me, okay?" Yu Lily looked at him. She leaned her back against the railing and looked at him with her eyes wide open. I know you're angry with me. It's my fault. I've gone too far. I'm not good. I have a cheap mouth. You can hit me or scold me. Come back with me. I'll take you to see my parents. I'll introduce you to all my relatives and let them know you. Chapter 1039. Hearing that, Oh Ming had a helpless look on his face. At the same time, the elevator had reached the top floor. The people in the elevator went out. Oh Ming straightened up and pulled her out. He gritted his teeth and said, "You Lily, you are trying to piss me off." When Yu Lily heard his obviously unhappy voice, she was a little angry, but before she could speak, she was pulled outside. As soon as she came out, the biting cold wind made Yu Lily shiver. Yu Lily hugged her arms and had the illusion that she was going to be frozen into a popsicle. Seeing this, Oh Ming sighed helplessly, unbuttoned his coat, pulled her into his arms, and held her in his coat. Sure enough, hugging is so much warmer. Yu Lily reached out and touched his body. It felt like a cashmere sweater, but she couldn't feel how many pieces he was wearing. It was very warm, but also very thin. Oh Ming felt the cold wind pouring in and subconsciously hugged her tighter. Many people looked at them, and there was envy in the eyes of the girls. Oh Ming whispered in her ear, gritted his teeth, and said, "You Lily, do you really think that I married Shin Manting? Such a big thing, haven't you seen the news?" His tone was a little bad, but it also revealed that he was full of sadness. He looked as if he had been angered to the point of anger. Yu Lily looked up at him and remembered that Shinjilia had asked her the same question yesterday, "Have you seen the news?" Seeing Yu Lily's confused face, Oh Ming wanted to bite her to death. He said fiercely, "In order to find you, I have run away from the marriage. What else do you want?" Yu Lily's ears seemed to hear the wind. Oh Ming's words, together with the cold wind, made her a little stiff. What? Did I hear it wrong? Because of me? Run away from the marriage? Yu Lily felt a little strange and unbelievable, but she quickly denied it and said, "Impossible. If you want to break off the marriage, why wait until the wedding to run away? Isn't that looking for trouble? Oh Ming is not such a person. You really don't watch the news?" Oh Ming was defeated by her. He picked up the phone and searched, Oh Ming runs away from the marriage. Sure enough, there was a lot of news as soon as it came out. Breaking news. The young master of the O clan is dissatisfied with the marriage of the Shin clan's daughter and runs away. Scumbag or true love? A second-generation rich man abandons a rich girl for a mistress. Another good man has fallen. A blessed newlywed escapes from their wedding. Yu Lily read them one by one. She clicked her tongue and found it hard to believe. Really? Are you blind? Oh Ming fiercely pinched her face. His face was full of helplessness, but when he saw her expression, he was full of surprise. However, he still deliberately said with a sullen face, "Such a big thing, the domestic network is going crazy, and you still don't know." Yu Lily's neck shrank back at the sound of such a low growl. These few days, in order to avoid the news, she did not even connect to the internet. She basically relied on text messages and the ITU to communicate. Hearing such big news, Yu Lily still found it hard to digest. Looking up at Oh Ming, she asked again, "Really?" Chapter 1040. Yu Lily was about to refute, but Oh Ming continued to say, "You let me run for nothing, but why did you hook up a gigolo to be cannon fodder? Yesterday, I almost believed it. If I hadn't seen Shinjilia knocking on your door from the opposite room, I don't know what he will do. However, life is really full of excitement and surprises. Fortunately, he didn't leave yesterday. Otherwise, he wouldn't have encountered such a thing." Yu Lily felt more and more guilty. She couldn't help but look up and refute, "Didn't you always believe that he is my boyfriend? Why do you suddenly not believe it?" "I never believed it. Do you really think I am stupid? Even if you want to find another man, you should find someone like me. A gigolo is not your cup of tea." As he spoke, he took out a small black box from his coat pocket and stuffed it into Yu Lily's palm. He ordered, "Open it." Yu Lily's heart suddenly sped up. Looking at the small box, she blinked her eyes. "Is this a ring? But who gives a ring like this? It's so fierce. How is it a proposal?" Yu Lily raised her eyes and looked at Oh Ming with dissatisfaction. Oh Ming looked away at the moment, as if he didn't care whether she opened it or not. Yu Lily put the box in her pocket, but before she put it in, she was pulled up by Oh Ming and said, "Open it." Oh Ming's unhappy warning inexplicably made Yu Lily feel better. Reluctantly, she picked up the small box. The design of the box was very clever and exquisite. After looking for a long time, Yu Lily found a small notch. She pressed it, and a heart-shaped red box was pushed out. There was a button in the middle of the red box. Yu Lily pressed it, but suddenly, there was a loud noise in her palm. Yu Lily was shocked. She reflexively yelled and threw the box in her hand. However, the box in her hand seemed to grow in the palm of her hand, and she couldn't get rid of it. Yu Lily felt a chill on the ring finger of her left hand. She raised her hand and saw a beautifully designed diamond ring on her hand. The ring on her hand was designed with rattan, and the main ring was a beautiful and brilliant pink diamond. There was a circle of small diamonds around it, which looked very attractive. The entire surface of the ring was designed in the shape of a cartoon cat. It was cute and playful, yet gorgeous and exquisite. So beautiful, so familiar. This was the design she had seen in Oh Ming's study that year. Yu Lily looked at the ring and was slightly stunned. This ring was actually on her finger? Oh Ming held her hand gently. His pair of shimmering eyes seemed to be sparkling, rippling with bright light. Oh Ming lowered his voice and said word by word, "Marry me. In the future, you will be my Mrs. O, my wife, the real one. No matter what, I'm still his girlfriend, the genuine kind." When Yu Lily heard that, she chuckled. This fellow actually imitated her words. "What are you laughing at?" Oh Ming was a little annoyed, and his cheeks involuntarily reddened. Looking at her appearance, he was so angry that his teeth itched. "Are you laughing at me?" Yu Lily smiled, looked away, and shook her head. "No. Chapter 1041. Yu Lily's smile widened unconsciously. She turned her head slightly, put her hands around his waist, and asked, "Are you cold?" Changing the subject. Oh Ming was a little unhappy. He pressed her down and said, "I'm cold. It's windy up there. Let's go down. Don't you want to play a little longer?" They had just come up. "If it's too cold, we won't be able to play anymore." Yu Lily smiled and pulled him. "Put on your clothes. Will you marry me or not?" Oh Ming didn't give up at all. He looked into her eyes and said, "You've already accepted the ring. If you don't marry me, I'll jump down from here with you in my arms." Yu Lily laughed and felt like a fool. She looked up and stood on her tiptoes to kiss his lips. She said, "Marry me, marry me. Let's go back." Oh Ming was surprised when he heard that. The slight nervousness in his heart instantly turned into joy. Looking at Yu Lily in front of him, Oh Ming was overjoyed. He hugged her tightly in his arms and shouted, "Yu Lily, this is definitely the wisest thing you have ever done in your life." Shameless. Well, I'm shameless. I want a wife. Oh Ming was ecstatic and kissed her hard on the face twice. Such an action caused a huge stir in the eyes of the people around. Many people looked over. Some were envious, and some were incredulous. Yu Lily blushed and pulled him. "Let's go. There are so many people watching." Unexpectedly, Oh Ming not only didn't avoid her, but looked up and shouted in French, "I'm so happy. My girlfriend has agreed to marry me." Hearing that, the people who came to play around all exclaimed. Someone took the lead, and suddenly there was a thunderous applause from the top of the pagoda. "Thank you, thank you." Oh Ming smiled with Yu Lily in his arms. "Let's go, wife." Wife, the two completely unfamiliar words made Yu Lily's heart beat fiercely. She looked up and saw Oh Ming's serious and deep eyes. They were as bright as the stars last night, beautiful and magnificent. Yu Lily's face was burning. She couldn't help but stand on her tiptoes and kiss him. However, Oh Ming was even more direct. After holding her firmly, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply. The soft touch had a strange electric shock. Oh Ming pried open her lips and teeth in a domineering manner and gradually went deeper. He stroked her cheek with one finger and inserted the other 4 fingers into her hair. Yu Lily felt as if her breath was being taken away. In the unusually cold air around her, her lips, face, and heart were burning hot. So warm, so warm. The surrounding crowd was in an uproar, exclaiming, clapping, and whistling sounds came one after another. Yu Lily's face burned even hotter, but she didn't avoid him. Instead, she gently responded. She wrapped her arms around his waist and didn't let go. In the face of such a response, Oh Ming felt his heart itch and palpitate incessantly. He loosened his grip on her gently and pulled her towards the elevator. The wind was strong above, but it was much warmer below. When the taxi reached the entrance of the hotel, Yu Lily's phone rang. It was Shenjilia. Oh Ming glanced at her, then pulled her up the steps of the hotel and into the lobby. He asked, "Why didn't you answer it?" Yu Lily hesitated for a moment before answering the phone. Chapter 1042. Did Yu Lily make up with Oh Ming? Shenjilia put down the phone, hung up, and walked in Yu Lily's direction. Looking at Yu Lily and Oh Ming, he asked, We are going to get married." Oh Ming took Yu Lily in his arms and announced his ownership. Looking at Shenjilia, Oh Ming smiled and said, "Yu Lily has just accepted my proposal. You have no chance, fake boyfriend." When Shenjilia heard this, his face suddenly changed. He looked at Yu Lily and found that she did not speak or refute. He suddenly felt a little funny and asked, "Really?" "Yes." Yu Lily nodded and raised her hand to show the ring that Oh Ming had just put on her finger. "Really?" Shenjilia looked at the ring and felt that it was indescribably dazzling. How could this guy agree so easily? "What are you thinking? He used to be so mean to you, and you can still forgive him." He almost raped you in public, and Yu Lily's heart felt like it was stabbed by something, and it was burning. Oh Ming's face changed, and he said angrily, "Shut up. Am I wrong? To treat a woman like this, Oh Ming, do you still think you're a man? Do you think you're worthy of her?" Shinjilia sneered. "Lily is more suited for someone better, and I'm that better." This matter was a thorn between Oh Ming and Yu Lily, and it could not be easily removed. Oh Ming's heart suddenly panicked. Looking at Yu Lily, his hand holding her hand became tighter. He was afraid. Yu Lily clearly felt the change in his mood, so she looked up at him. "But you lied to me." Yu Lily looked at Shinjilia. "You know what I am afraid of. Oh Ming and Shin Manting are not married at all, but you told me that their wedding was very smooth." "Shinjilia, why did you lie to me?" Shinjilia looked very calm and said, "I don't want you to be with him." Oh Ming's face became more serious, and he sneered, "You are a mistress, and yet you are so self-righteous." "Well done, Mr. Shen." However, Shinjilia acted as if he hadn't heard her and said, "He doesn't deserve your love. No matter how much you love him, how he treats you. Don't you think it's unfair?" As he spoke, he looked at Yu Lily and said, "When you were cold, he didn't accompany you through it. Otherwise, you would have been cured by now. This disease is not incurable. As long as you adjust your mentality, it can be cured." But he not only didn't help you, but also said such harsh words to you several times. Can you bear it? Shinjilia, shut up. There's no need for you to meddle in our affairs. I am her doctor. Her illness is my business. Shinjilia said firmly as he looked at Yu Lily. Oh Ming's face darkened. It was precisely because Shinjilia was her psychiatrist that he understood her so well. Shinjilia knew very well how much power his words had over Yu Lily. Oh Ming panicked. He held Yu Lily's hand and whispered, "Let's not listen to him. He is up to no good. Let's find other psychiatrists. All of them are better than him." Yu Lily pursed her lips and looked at Shinjilia in front of her. She felt a little complicated and said, "Mr. Shen." Mr. Shen, before, she had either called him Shinjilia or Jilia. It was the first time that she had called him so strangely. Chapter 1043. Thank you for this period of time. I also know that you are very concerned about my affairs, but I have my own choice. I can't lie to myself. I just like him, I love him, and I am willing to be with him. I'm sorry, during this time, Yu Lily felt a little guilty. During this time, Yu Lily really wanted to develop a relationship with Shinjilia. Yi Qianqian was right. If she wanted to end a relationship, she had to start a new one. However, she couldn't forget. Seeing her expression, Shinjilia shook his head helplessly and said, "Forget it. Since you have made up your mind, I won't meddle in your business anymore. But Lily, you deserve better. This man is a scumbag." With Yu Lily's words, Oh Ming's mood calmed down a lot. He looked at Shinjilia and chuckled. "Young Master Shen, I'm a scumbag. What about someone who doesn't know how to snatch someone's love and keeps asking my girlfriend to leave me?" Shinjilia smiled. "I just feel it's unfair for Lily. I think you feel it's unfair for Shin Manting, right? You know what kind of feelings I have for you, Lily, so in order to avenge your sister, you encourage my woman to leave me, right?" Oh Ming looked at Shinjilia and said, "If you have time to deal with me, it's better to guard against your good brother." Big brother? Shin Luopen? Shinjilia felt a little strange when he heard Oh Ming's words. Yu Lily was also shocked and looked at Oh Ming. Does he also know something? The relationship between Shin Luopen and Shin Manting is unclear. If Shin Manting didn't get married, Shin Luopen wouldn't let her go, right? Shinjilia looked at Oh Ming, trying to find something fishy on his face. But Oh Ming snorted and said, "Do you know why I ran away from my marriage? I think you already know the secret between my family and your family." Yes. The Shin family were all doctors, and Shen Luo's main focus was on chemical medicine. When he heard that Ming's mother had a strange disease, Shen Luo became interested. Who knew that he would actually develop a drug that could control the disease by accident? However, it was only control. Logically speaking, for his mother's sake, even if Ming was unwilling to marry Shen Manting, he would still have some scruples. However, on the day of their wedding, he embarrassed Shen Manting so much. Such a matter was unprecedented in the entire Shen family. The old lady was angry several times because of this, but there was nothing she could do. Upon hearing Ming's words, Shen Jilia's doubts, which had been burning in his heart, suddenly grew stronger. I made a deal with your eldest brother. Ming looked at Shen Jilia's suspicious expression and smiled. As for what the deal was, it's not convenient for me to reveal it. You can ask Shen Luo. However, there was no doubt about it. The reason why Ming ran away on the day of his wedding was also because of this deal. Shen Jilia couldn't figure it out. Why would Big Brother do that? In this way, although Shen Manting would suffer the most, there was no doubt that as her maiden family, the entire Shen family would be disgraced. Shen Luo had always been a person who valued his family's reputation. How could he have reached such an agreement with Ming? Strange. Chapter 1044. Ming was calm and said, if there is nothing else, we will go. Young Master Shen, please take care of yourself. Then he held Yu Lily in his arms and walked toward the elevator. Shen Jilia, on the other hand, stood rooted to the ground, deep in thought. The third day of the runaway marriage. Shen Manting still locked herself in the room and didn't see the light of day. She didn't want to go out at all. She ate and drank in the room. It was not only because she was in a bad mood, but also because she didn't dare to go out. She was afraid to see Shen Luo. At the same time, she wanted to show off to the family. Now, the media outside were all reporting on Shen Manting's situation, and they were also constantly monitoring Shen Manting. As long as she gave the outside world the illusion that she had been sad, then the family was likely to change their mind. After all, Ming didn't have the final say in the family. As long as she worked hard, maybe she could really marry Ming. No matter what, she couldn't be involved with Shen Luo. She couldn't. Shen Manting stood in front of the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. There were water drops on her face, no makeup, messy hair, and pajamas. Her face was pale. Sister Zhang was a little worried about Shen Manting's situation. She knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. While panicking, she didn't dare to act rashly. She listened carefully to the movement inside. Just when Sister Zhang was considering whether to find the key to open the door was directly opened from the inside. Shen Manting didn't look very good. Sister Zhang was a little worried and said, Miss, do you want to go out for a walk? You haven't gone out for several days. You will be suffocated. Shen Manting always liked to move and didn't like to be quiet. If it were in the past, it would be impossible for her to stay quietly like this for a few days. These past few days, he had been acting strangely. It seemed that Ming's runaway marriage had brought a huge blow to her. Thinking of this, Sister Zhang felt pity in her eyes, and her heart didn't feel very good. Shen Manting saw her emotions and said, I'm fine, Sister Zhang. You go ahead. I'll sleep for a while. If I need you, I'll call you again. Sister Zhang nodded and said, okay, then remember to rest well. Don't let your imagination run wild, okay? Well, thank you, Sister Zhang. Shen Manting smiled and closed the door. Sister Zhang was a little worried, but she really had other things to do. She looked at the door and quickly left. Shen Manting locked the door, then lay down and fell into a deep sleep. In her dream, Shen Manting walked to a river. Ming was enjoying the shade under a big tree by the river. When he saw her, he smiled at her and reached out his hand. Shen Manting paused for a moment. After some hesitation, she walked toward him. But soon, she heard laughter coming from behind her. She looked back and saw that it was the mistress that Ming had kept for many years. Shen Manting watched as Yu Lily walked towards Ming, and then the two of them hugged each other happily. Shen Manting stood rooted to the ground and stared at them in a daze. After a while, a tall figure descended from the sky. Shen Luo's gentle face had an indecipherable smile on it. He pounced on her and pressed her into the river. Shen Luo's face was as gentle as jade. Chapter 1045. This feeling was very clear. There seemed to be an indescribable lingering touch between her lips and teeth, penetrating her nerves layer by layer. Shen Manting opened her eyes with difficulty. At first glance, she saw the extremely familiar face, which was also the most terrible nightmare. Shen Luo. When Shen Manting saw the face in front of her, she was shocked. She struggled with her hands, but was firmly held down by him. Shen Luo looked at Shen Manting in front of him with his gentle eyes. With a smile on his face, he squinted his eyes and said softly, "What? Didn't you just call me very happily?" Shen Manting felt like she was struck by lightning. She called him? Impossible. I didn't. Shen Luo looked at Shen Manting in front of him and raised his eyebrows with great interest. He whispered, "It's a pity that I didn't record it. Otherwise, I would let you see how much you love me. You even call my name in your dreams." Impossible. You're dreaming. Shen Manting denied with a look of certainty. Unless I'm crazy, I wouldn't call your name. Shen Luo's eyes dimmed. He slightly approached her and said dangerously, "Are you sure? Are you crazy? You did call me that just now." In fact, she was calling Ming just now. Shen Luo was very sure that Shen Manting didn't love Ming. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so calm these days and wouldn't have stayed at home. But now that he heard Shen Manting calling Ming's name in her sleep, Shen Luo's original certainty suddenly began to waver. When Shen Manting heard this, she struggled hard and pushed him away. But Shen Luo's body was still on top of her and never left her body. Damn it, Shen Manting gritted her teeth and sneered, "Really? Maybe I'm really crazy. Even if I love Ming, I can't fall in love with a big pervert like you." When Shen Luo heard this, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and there seemed to be a penetrating cold light in his eyes. When Shen Manting met Shen Luo's gaze, she was a little scared, but she quickly shrank her neck. Looking at Shen Luo, she summoned up her courage and provoked, "Why? Don't you let me tell the truth?" Shen Manting. Shen Luo said through gritted teeth. It was as if the words were squeezed out from between his teeth. Just when she thought he was going to scold her, he smirked coldly. He lowered his head and attacked her snow-white chest. A corner of her delicate and fair skin was gently sucked out. Her whole body trembled violently. Then, as if it was a conditioned reflex, she struggled and shouted, "Shen." "Ugh," Shen Luo covered her mouth and warned her cruelly, "You want to scream? Then how are you going to explain that I raped you?" Shen Manting's breathing quickened and she struggled unwillingly. "Shoo." Shen Luo smiled warmly, as if he was still the harmless, gentle, and elegant young man. But it was this man who looked so pretentious, as her elder brother, who did such a thing to her. Don't be impulsive. No matter how much the family dotes on you, you're just an adopted daughter. If I say that you seduced me into your room, who do you think Grandma will believe? Shen Manting didn't move and stared at him in disbelief. Good sister, don't move. Don't scream. Shoo, Shen Luo gently released his hand and looked at her with a smile on his lips. Shen Manting panicked and asked, "What do you want to do?" "Do you still need to ask?" "Sleep with you. Dash." Chapter 1046. Shen Manting's eyes widened, and she desperately shrank back. However, she couldn't escape. Shen Luo unsealed her lips, not leaving a single gap between them. Shen Manting didn't dare to scream. Old Mrs. Shen had been very kind to her, but if Shen Luo and made a false accusation, the Shen family would definitely not protect her. The Shen family couldn't afford to lose face. Shen Luo and was the pride of the Shen family, and there couldn't be any stain on it. But did she deserve to be bullied by him? Shen Manting's eyes were red, and tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Why? Why would you rather give yourself to O Ming? Why are you so unwilling to let me touch you? Why are you willing to give yourself to O Ming? Huh? Shen Luo and pressed her legs and hands hard, and pressed her under his body. Which part of me is inferior to O Ming? Shen Manting shook her head desperately, and her face was rubbed by his palms. While struggling, a sharp pain suddenly attacked her. Shen Manting's hands suddenly pulled the sleeves of his shirt and shook her head violently. However, Shen Luo and didn't have the slightest mercy, and he attacked her forcefully. Shen Manting's tears flowed more and more, and she bit his palm with great strength. Shen Luo and frowned, but he didn't withdraw his hand. His breathing was slightly rapid, and he sighed and lifted her up. Shen Manting felt like a rag doll, which was casually played with and then thrown on the bed to fend for itself. After Shen Luo and tidied her up, he began to tidy himself up. Shen Luo and looked at Shen Manting, who was lying on the bed with a blank look on her face. He squeezed the last button on his shirt and glanced at her from the corner of his eye. He smiled warmly and said, "You really didn't let me down, my good sister." He was satisfied with her chastity, satisfied with her jerkiness. "As long as you say it, I can marry you at any time." Shen Luo and looked down at her from above. His gaze was gentle, and his white shirt made him look even more like a handsome older brother next door. Unfortunately, he was her older brother. Shen Manting silently shed tears and closed her eyes. Shen Luo and couldn't maintain the smile on his face. He turned around, opened the door, and walked out. Yi Yuyu was about to deliver the meal to Shen Manting. When she saw him coming out of Shen Manting's room, she was slightly surprised and shouted, "Brother Luo, and did you go to see Manting?" Shen Luo and took her hand and glanced at the tray in her hand. He quickly took it and said, "Well, I'll send it over. I've just persuaded her." Yeah. After Yi Yuyu handed the tray to him, she felt a little strange. Shen Luo and cared too much about his sister, who wasn't even his biological sister. Was it an illusion? Yi Yuyu frowned and followed them. She said, "I haven't seen my aunt for a few days. I'll go too." "There's no need for that. You go ahead with your work. We'll have dinner together later," Shen Luo and said nonchalantly. When Yi Yuyu heard that, her eyes lit up. This was the first time Shen Luo and had suggested having dinner with her. Nodding repeatedly, Yi Yuyu was a little surprised and said, "Then I'll go help in the kitchen." "Okay, be careful." Yi Yuyu's heart was bursting with joy. She nodded her head and, like a happy bird, turned around and walked away gracefully. Shen Luo and opened the door again, but found that it couldn't be opened. "Is it locked from the inside?" Shen Luo and curled his lips and murmured, "Naive." He took the key from his pocket and opened the door, but found that Shen Manting was no longer in bed. Chapter 1047. Shen Luo and had an ominous feeling in his heart. After putting down the food, he knocked on the door of the bathroom. He wanted to open it, but it was locked from the inside. He tried to twist it, but it wouldn't budge. "Manting?" Shen Luo and knocked on the door and shouted, "Are you inside? Open the door." However, it was still quiet. Suddenly, the sound of something falling to the ground came from inside. It was like a thunderclap that hit Shen Luo An's heart. Shen Luo An was shocked and knocked on the door, but there was no response. Someone outside heard the noise and quickly rushed over. But no matter how much he knocked on the door and shouted, the person inside didn't come out to open the door. Shen Luo An's face darkened. He had a bad feeling in his heart. He growled, "Get out of the way." As he spoke, He lifted the solid wood stool in the room and smashed it against the lock of the bathroom door. It didn't budge, so Shen Luo and smashed it a few more times before the lock showed signs of loosening. He slammed the door open and saw Shen Manting leaning against the glass door of the shower. There was a bottle of shower gel and shampoo in front of her, and there was foam hanging from the corner of her mouth. The liquid in the 2 bottles had been emptied. Seeing this scene, Shen Luo's head suddenly shook, and a large blank suddenly attacked him, destroying all his consciousness and reason without a trace. Oh my God! There was a cry of alarm, and the people behind him suddenly ran to where Shen Manting was. When they saw her like this, they were shocked and shouted, "Oh my God, an ambulance! Call an ambulance!" For a moment, the scene was chaotic. Shen Luo was stunned on the spot. He saw and heard people running around, but he didn't know what to do at all. In other words, Shen Luo was already dumbfounded. She committed suicide? I just did that to her, so is she going to commit suicide? Impossible. The Shen Manting that Shen Luo knew wasn't such a person. He was at a loss as to what to do. He took Shen Manting's body from Sister Zhang's hands and stood up with her in his arms. His heart was filled with panic and emptiness. He shouted, "Get out of my way." Paris, France. In the oversized presidential suite, a man and a woman were entangled passionately. The sound of their rapid breathing was particularly eye-catching in the quiet room. Very soon, however, his cell phone rang. In this originally spacious space, the ringtone was even more reverberating. Oh Ming raised his head and glanced at his mother in the midst of his busy schedule. Oh Ming gently released Yu Lily and said, "It's my mom. I need to take a call." Yu Lily was lying on the bed. Her clothes were messy. Her bra had been untied and hung loosely. On the other hand, Oh Ming was only left with a shirt and trousers. His thick winter clothes had been taken off. After Oh Ming calmed his breathing, he picked up the phone and said, "Mom." Xiao Ziqing sounded like she was crying as she shouted, "Lil, oh, come back quickly. It's all your fault, you little rascal." Xiao Ziqing rarely cried, and it was extremely rare to see her sobbing like she did today. Oh Ming's heart skipped a beat. He calmed down and asked, "Mom, tell me slowly. What happened?" Chapter 1048. Hearing his mother's words, Oh Ming retorted, "How is that possible?" He subconsciously thought of Shen Manting's arrogant, beautiful, and insufferably arrogant face. Shen Manting committed suicide? How is that possible? Oh Ming would never believe that Shen Manting committed suicide because Oh Ming ran away from the wedding. However, at this critical juncture, everyone would naturally attribute Shen Manting's suicide to Oh Ming. Even Oh Ming's parents and the Shen family would be no exception. However, Oh Ming didn't think it was that simple. Shen Manting didn't really like him. How could she have committed suicide because of his rejection? That's impossible. Something's wrong. Hearing Oh Ming's words, Xiao Ziqing was even angrier. She scolded, "What's wrong with Manting?" She was well-behaved and sensible. She was beautiful and had a good family background. More importantly, she loved you wholeheartedly. Why did you have to be entangled with that mistress? Now, everyone is saying that you abandoned Manting for your mistress, which led to her suicide. Xiao Oh, I thought you were no longer a child and had your own ideas about everything you did. But how could you be so wrong this time? Gu Nianchen thought. How do you expect us to face them in the future? Huh? Oh Ming pursed his lips when he heard Xiao Ziqing's words. When he was about to speak, his mother interrupted him. Xiao Ziqing went on and on. Towards the end, she burst into tears and shouted, "Manting is such a good girl. It's hard to come by someone like her. If anything happens to Manting, will you be able to live with your conscience?" Shen Luo asked. "Mom, calm down. I don't think it's that simple." Regardless of whether it's that simple or not, the O family has become the target of everyone's disdain. "Where are you now?" "Paris. You went to find that girl, didn't you? Xiao Ziqing's words were harsh and angry. Ming didn't speak, but his attitude was tantamount to acquiescence. Good, good, good. Xiao Ziqing said 3 times in a row, each louder than the last. Finally, she shouted, come back here right now. Xiao Ziqing's angry voice came from the phone. When Ming was about to speak, Xiao Ziqing had already hung up. His voice was so loud that even Yu Lily could hear him clearly. Ming helplessly put his hands down and looked at Yu Lily in front of him. His original interest in her was gone. Yu Lily frowned and asked, what's going on? Shen Manting committed suicide. We don't know if she's dead or alive. Our family has probably been bombarded by the media. It was not hard to imagine the complexity and danger involved. He got up and said, I have to go back first. As he spoke, he put on his clothes, tidied up his shirt, and buttoned up the buttons one by one. However, looking at Ming, it seemed that he had no intention of bringing her along. Yu Lily felt a lump in her throat and asked, aren't you going to bring me along? Chapter 1049. When Yu Lily heard that, she felt a little lost. Ming fastened his cufflinks and looked at her with a pair of peach blossom eyes. He held her face in his hands and continued, Yu Lily, now I am not sure that I can protect you. When I go back, I will be criticized and my reputation will be ruined. If Shen Manting is rescued, I will tell her clearly. But if Shen Manting dies, I will be the biggest sinner in everyone's eyes. Moreover, behind this big sinner, Yu Lily's existence was probably more important than Shen Manting's life and death. Although Ming felt that the reason behind Shen Manting's suicide was certainly not simple, many Chinese netizens did not pay much attention to whether it was caused by Ming's escape from the marriage. For Chinese netizens, joining in the fun was more important than any justice. The result that everyone had determined at the beginning was what everyone hoped for. Ming was very clear about the possible results. At this moment, Ming had already prepared for the worst. He absolutely could not let Yu Lily return to China. Looking at Yu Lily, Ming said word by word, I will solve everything and then come to Paris to pick you up. During this time, you will live here and don't go back. Remember. Yu Lily pursed her lips and nodded. Ming gently kissed her on the forehead. Then, he put on his clothes and walked out. In China, Shen Manting's suicide caused a stir. Because it was discovered quickly, after some rescue and gastric lavage, Shen Manting's condition was not serious. Shen Luo'an's mood was originally panicked and helpless. When Shen Manting woke up, his mind gradually became clear. Looking at Shen Manting lying on the bed with her eyes closed and face pale, Shen Luo'an's anger was even more uncontrollable. Shen Manting had clearly calculated the time her family would deliver the food and deliberately locked the door from the inside. After that, she put on such a show. Her goal was to expose her actions and stop her. In this way, her suicide would not be successful, but at the same time, it could ignite the public opinion on the internet and push Ming to the forefront. Retreating in order to advance, Ming fell into the land of injustice. Shen Manting's suicide had already been the subject of much discussion, and the attention on the matter skyrocketed in an instant. In this way, Shen Manting would naturally be labeled as a victim. At the same time, she would be in a vulnerable position. If Shen Luo'an leaked anything at this time, it wouldn't just be about Shen Manting and Ming. Shen Manting's move killed 3 birds with 1 stone. She pushed herself to the surface, warned Shen Luo'an, and took revenge on Ming. No one would dare to touch her easily. So, Shen Manting is so smart? Shen Luo'an looked at Shen Manting and sneered. After staring at her for a long time, he finally turned around and walked out. Yi Yuyu arrived at that moment. She saw Shen Luo'an and asked, how is Auntie? However, Shen Luo'an didn't spare her a glance and quickly walked away. When Ming returned to Kingstown, he was surrounded by a large group of media. Mr. O, you came back from Miss Yu's place, right? What do you think of Miss Shen's suicide? I heard that you've been with Miss You for many years. You've been two-timing all along. Is that true? All kinds of media platforms were talking at the same time, but Oh Ming never said a word. Dash. Chapter 1050. Under the protection of the bodyguards, Oh Ming quickly left the airport. From beginning to end, he didn't say a word. After getting in the car, Oh Ming left. The news of Oh Ming's return to China exploded on the internet again. Netizens immediately flooded Weibo, and all kinds of news were on the hot search list. The title of the first hot topic on Weibo was impressively eye-catching. The young master of the O group returns before the new year and is suspected to visit his ex-fiancée. Below, a large number of keyboard warriors flooded the screen, but all of them were cursing. What were you doing earlier? Running away from marriage for a mistress. Now that you have committed suicide, you come back to pretend? Bah! A bitch and a dog will last forever. Shen Manting has waited for you for 4 years. Where can you find such a woman? You are blind. From today on, boycott all the products under the O group, including TT. Not only on the internet, but even around the O family, Xiao Ziqing's friends and neighbors gave the O family a strange look. On the way back, Oh Ming saw a lot of news. His heart sank, but he also felt a little lucky. Fortunately, he didn't let Yu Manting come back to China, otherwise things would definitely become more complicated. Oh Ming went to the hospital to see Shen Manting immediately. Outside the hospital, there were reporters squatting at the door of the hospital, waiting for Oh Ming to appear. As soon as they saw his car arrive, the group of reporters rushed forward, scrambling to stretch out their microphones, and asked sharp and sensitive questions. Mr. Oh Ming, are you here to repent? Mr. Oh Ming, why did you run away from marriage? I heard that you did this because of a mistress you have kept for many years. Mr. Oh Ming, I heard that Miss Shen is still in a coma in the hospital, and her life is uncertain. Do you feel guilty in your heart? Mr. Oh Ming, what are you going to do next? Do you want to break off the engagement with Miss Shen this time? The bodyguards cleared the way. Oh Ming, wearing black sunglasses, was expressionless and silent. After entering the hospital, Oh Ming was taken by the bodyguards to the direction of the VIP ward where Shen Manting was. On the way there, he met someone who was reasonable, yet unexpected. Shen Luo and was wearing a long, cream-colored windbreaker, black trousers, and a white shirt. He looked a little thin in such a cold winter. On that gentle and handsome face, there was obvious exhaustion. Green stubble had appeared. When he saw Oh Ming, he was slightly surprised. The two men stood in the corridor. They stopped and looked at each other. Oh Ming took off his sunglasses and looked at Shen Luo and in front of him. There was a dangerous look in his eyes as he said, "Let's talk." It was not a question, but an order. How could Shen Luo and not hear the displeasure in Oh Ming's tone? He smiled and nodded. "Let's go." The two of them went up to the rooftop of the hospital. There was no wind today, and the sun was shining brightly. But the cold air was still raging. Oh Ming looked at Shen Luo, who was wearing thin clothes in front of him, and said, "Shen Manting wouldn't commit suicide because I ran away from the wedding." "What did you say to her?" Shen Luo smiled and raised his eyebrows. "You're wrong. She committed suicide because she couldn't withstand the public opinion and psychological pressure. Do you think you know her so well?" Chapter 1051. In order to escape from him, what Shen Manting did was crueler than he could imagine. Shen Luo's gentle eyes became gloomy. He looked at Oh Ming with his lips slightly raised and said, "Do you come back now to marry her?" Oh Ming smiled. "Will you agree?" The smile on Shen Luo's face gradually disappeared. He looked at him and slightly raised his eyebrows. "Try." "I can't afford to try." Oh Ming took out a cigarette from his pocket, took out one, and slowly lit it. He slowly said, "I already have one. I'll leave this one for you." As he spoke, he slowly exhaled a pale white smoke. My woman is still waiting for me to go back and marry her. Shen Luo and joked, I didn't expect you to be so loyal. It's easy to say, but it's not the same as you. You like one and marry the other. Oh. Oh Ming looked at him coldly. I'm still curious. What did you do to Shen Manting? Don't say stupid things like running away from marriage. I don't believe it. When Shen Luo and was about to speak, his cell phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID, but his expression did not change. He continued, no matter what the reason is, no one will suspect me. You'd better take care of yourself. After answering the phone, Shen Luo and turned to look at O Ming with a deep meaning. After hanging up the phone, Shen Luo and looked at O Ming and said, Shen Manting woke up, and your mother is also there. As he spoke, he turned around and walked down the stairs. O Ming looked at his back, and his eyes darkened. Seeing Shen Luo An's reaction, even if O Ming was stupid and naive, he knew that it must have something to do with this guy. But, what did Shen Luo An do? O Ming's matter was very sensational. Since she came to Paris, it was the first time she turned on the internet, which she hadn't used for a long time. She randomly searched, and all kinds of news about O Ming popped up. Looking at the striking headlines, Yu Lily clicked on them and found that many things were related to her. Deep dig. The mistress of O's young master is the editor of his comics. O Ming's mistress revealed. The woman who defeated Shen's daughter is actually an orphan. Counting the women who have nothing but easily capture the favor of the rich second generation, did the people in the country care so much about her now? If she went back, she would probably be drowned by the saliva of a single person. The reputation of being a mistress and a mistress was really hateful in the hearts of the keyboard warriors in China. Yu Lily knew that it was safest for her to stay in China, but she couldn't help but feel disappointed. When would she be able to stand beside O Ming openly? Suddenly, a message popped up on Weibo, and the text shocked Yu Lily. O Ming's mistress's Weibo exposure. Yuli, miss you, what is it like to force the legal wife to commit suicide? Topic, Shen's daughter suicide. There was a picture below, which was one of the few selfies that O Ming had taken with Yu Lily. Yu Lily smiled like a flower, and O Ming, who was wearing a burgundy suit, stood behind her, looking at her with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. They were so close that the tip of O Ming's nose almost touched her hair. This was a photo from 5 years ago. At that time, Yu Lily had a young and childish face. Chapter 1052. Stealthily come stealthily go, too shameless, the mistress should go to hell. All expectations fail. 2333, hee, she looks young, but how can she be so coquettish? Fox, de 11 hides in the world, she is young but has a big heart. It is really easy to be a mistress. Sure enough, without the education of parents, she has no bottom line. Maline's shopping agent. The lip color of the mistress in the picture is the classic look of the C family. I want a private message. Yu Lily looked at the Weibo and refreshed it. All of a sudden, there were several more comments, each of which was scolding her. Yu Lily felt uncomfortable. Suddenly, her mobile phone vibrated and she received a private message from Weibo. Unfollowed person's information, you look good. You can seduce O Ming. You must be good at kung fu, right? How much money does O Ming give you a month? I will give you double. Yu Lily was furious and opened the dialog box to edit, go to hell. However, before she sent it out, Yu Lily deleted those words one by one. No, I can't be angry, I can't admit it. However, there were several private messages. Shameless mistress, go to hell. Are you the mistress? You can do anything at such a young age, but you have to destroy other people's family. Smile, smile, go to hell. Don't let me see you, or I will beat you every time I see you. Picture, the picture sent was a selfie of Yu Lily. Her face was painted with delicate makeup, and she looked high-spirited, petite and beautiful. This Yu Lily was the Yu Lily from 5 years ago. Yu Lily browsed and found that there were a lot of replies to her Weibo, but all of them were scolding her. She was angry, but she couldn't show up. If Yu Lily clicked like or commented, she would definitely become the target of public criticism without hesitation. Yu Lily simply logged out of the account and threw the phone aside. But soon, she thought of the bug in her mind. Now Ming should have returned to China, and he should go to the hospital to see Shen Manting as soon as possible. Yu Lily picked up the phone again and opened it. Sure enough, she heard the voice coming over there. There was the voice of a middle-aged woman and Shen Manting. "Auntie, I'm sorry." Yu Lily could clearly hear the sobs in Shen Manting's voice. "I'm sorry, I really can't take it anymore. These days, everyone has been sympathizing with me. Just before Ming ran away from the wedding, I thought I could be a good daughter-in-law to you, to be filial to you, to respect you, and to live with Ming. But I really didn't expect that Ming would run away from the wedding. Previously, I told my classmates and friends that I would have a happy life after marriage, but now I can't do it anymore. This feeling is like being stripped alive and thrown in front of them." Manting, the middle-aged woman, also cried, and said with, and said, and. Chapter 1053. The conversation continued, and Yu Lily guessed that this middle-aged woman was undoubtedly Ming's mother. She seemed to really like Shen Manting. Listening to her tone, it was as if she was feeling sorry for her own daughter. Shen Manting and Ming's mother already had such a deep relationship. That's right, it's been 4 years. How many 4 years can there be in a life? In these 4 years, Shen Manting had been with Ming's mother as her future daughter-in-law. Yu Lily couldn't compare with her at all. However, before Ming's mother could make the call, she stopped. Then she heard Ming shout, "Xiao O!" It was Ming. "And Shen Luo then. You're awake? Are you hungry? What do you want to eat?" Shen Luo asked several questions, but Shen Manting didn't say anything. The situation seemed a little awkward, and at the same time, she heard light footsteps coming from behind. It was Ming's footsteps. Yu Lily pricked up her ears to listen to the movement over there. It seemed that there were a lot of people coming. Now, Yu Lily knew that it was Shen Luo and Ming's mother, and Shen Manting. "Mom, I'll talk to her. You go back first. I'll come home later." Ming's voice was familiar, but distant. Yu Lily was glad that her little virus hadn't been scanned clearly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known what they were talking about. When Xiao Ziqing heard her son's words, she looked at Shen Manting and Ming, stood up, turned around, and saw Shen Luo's obviously not very good expression. She smiled and said, "Luo, it's been hard on you these days. You've been by Manting's side, you're welcome. Manting is my sister. It's my duty." Shen Luo's face was gentle, and he nodded slightly. Xiao Ziqing nodded and smiled a little gratified. She said, "Manting is really lucky to have such a good brother like you." "Good brother." Shen Manting heard Xiao Ziqing's praise for Shen Luo and her hands under the quilt slightly clenched. The hatred in her heart suddenly overflowed in her eyes, and overflowed to the tip of her eyebrows. When Shen Luo heard this, he glanced at Shen Manting, who was lying on the bed. The smile on his face widened, and he turned his gaze back to her. He nodded slightly and said, "You flatter me." "Go out, big brother," Shen Manting said without looking up. Her voice was a little dry as she said, "Auntie, thank you for coming to see me." "Manting, there's no need to stand on ceremony between us," Xiao Ziqing said with a straight face. "Xiao, remember to come home when you're done." "Got it." Ming waved his hand. Ming watched as Xiao Ziqing and Shen Luo walked out together. He then sat down on the chair that Xiao Ziqing had been sitting on. "Shen Manting, what exactly do you want? You know that I hate you. Don't you think it's despicable of you to use such means?" As soon as Ming spoke, he did not hesitate to ridicule her. When Shen Manting heard that, she looked up at him. This was Oh Ming's true colors, especially when he was in front of her. For 4 years, he didn't hide it at all. He clearly showed his disgust for her in front of her. He didn't even want to pretend, which was very annoying. However, she had no choice. Oh Ming, Shen Manting called out, and her eyes were pleading. Marry me, okay? Dash. Chapter 1054. Her voice was neither high nor low, but when she looked at him with a pair of slightly tired and listless eyes, there was a hint of pleading in her eyes. Oh Ming looked at her and smiled. Shen Manting, I said that I wouldn't marry you. Do you think that by committing suicide, you can force me to marry you? I beg you, Oh Ming, I beg you, marry me. Shen Manting leaned toward Oh Ming and grabbed his sleeves with both hands. Her eyes were full of helplessness. Why are you doing this? You promised me before that I would help you save Auntie and you would marry me. I have waited for you for 4 years. Can't you pretend? It doesn't matter if you don't love me after marriage. It doesn't matter if we can only have a marriage of convenience. Marry me, and I will help you. Why me? Oh Ming was puzzled. He looked at Shen Manting coldly and said, You know that I won't have feelings for you. Why do you like me? You and Shen Luo, and, hearing the name Shen Luo, and, Shen Manting's face turned pale, and she shouted out reflexively, No. No? What kind of answer is that? Seeing her reaction, Oh Ming felt that there was definitely more to it than meets the eye. What happened between you and Shen Luo, and? Oh Ming looked at her hand that was pulling his sleeves, and his eyes were slightly deep. He continued to say, Shen Manting, you are a smart person. This suicide is definitely not because of me. No one was stupid. Shen Manting used him more than she loved him. Oh Ming was clear about that. Shen Manting also clearly realized that Oh Ming was talking about suicide, not suicide. In other words, he might have already noticed something. A scheming glint flashed across her beautiful big eyes. A plan had already sprouted in her heart. Seeing that she did not speak, Oh Ming continued, If I can run away from marriage once, I will run away a second time. No one will be happy in a forced marriage, and you don't like me at all. Why bother to force us to be together like this? Oh Ming, why don't we make a deal? Shen Manting looked at Oh Ming and said, Don't you like that mistress? That woman surnamed you, you can keep her by your side. If we get married, I will absolutely not hinder you. I just want the title of Mrs. O. You can live with her and be with her every day. I won't mind, I mind. Oh Ming's face darkened. Why should my woman be wronged? You are wrong, Oh Ming. You are not wronging her, but me. Do you think that if you don't marry of me, you can marry her? Don't you know how much your mother values family and background? If you really want to be with that woman, you won't be able to get past your mother. She sneered and said, Even if you don't marry me, Zhang Manting and Li Manting will replace me tomorrow and become your wife. You of any one of you of you, Shen of her. Her words made Oh Ming's face darkened. I'm the only one who can do that. I agree to this marriage of convenience. This is already my biggest concession. I just don't have a title. If that woman really loves you and wants to be with you, she won't care about these things on the surface, right? Shen of you, Lily's heart clearly, like a knife, cut again and again. Chapter 1055. Shen Manting's words were very reasonable, but it was also a very real problem. You Lily had nothing. How could she be worthy of Oh Ming? In other words, even if you Lily's parents were alive, how could they compare with Shen Manting? The Shen family might not be as rich as the O family, but as a famous family in the capital, many people couldn't compare with them. How could a family like the O family not like such a daughter-in-law? If that woman really loves you and wants to be with you, she won't care about these things on the surface, right? Shen Manting's words were like pearls. What Shen Manting was talking about was the status. If she loved him, would she really not care about these things? But, she cared, she was damned concerned and damned greedy. Was it because she didn't love him enough? Yu Lily's eyes looked down, slightly dark. Shen Manting's voice fell, her eyes fixed on O Ming, and she continued to say, if she doesn't want to, it can only mean that she doesn't love you enough. Or, she is with you for your money. It's a good chance to test her. You're wrong, O Ming interrupted her, looked at Shen Manting, and said seriously, the more I love someone, the more I want to give her all the good things. My wife can only be her. I love her, and I can only have her. Shen Manting heard this and snorted, O Ming, it's not appropriate to say this in front of me. According to my understanding of you, you are not suitable to say this kind of sour smell of love. It's disgusting. Whether you believe it or not, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Shen Manting, let's just leave it at that. There's no need to entangle each other any further. O Ming pulled his hand back and said coldly, Shen Luo entreats you very well. Cherish him. O Ming, you are crazy. He is my brother. Even though what he had done to her had long surpassed the boundaries of siblings. Thinking of what he did to her that day, Shen Manting couldn't help but clench her teeth, and a sense of shame and taboo suddenly swept over her. In the past few days in a coma, Shen Manting had been having a dream. A nightmare in which she fell into the punishment of God, fell into hell, and was despised by thousands of people. In the dream, Yi Yuyu asked her hysterically why she did this. Shen Manting was speechless, and the embarrassment in her heart was brought from the dream to reality. Especially when she saw Yi Yuyu, Shen Manting didn't dare to look at her eyes, and she didn't dare to face Yi Yuyu's kindness. He narrowed his eyes and said, you know that you and Shen Luo and are not related by blood at all. You can't call it a relationship at all. Even if you really have a shameful relationship, shut up. Shen Manting reacted violently. She looked up and shouted, you're the one who has a shameful relationship. O Ming was interrupted. He narrowed his eyes and looked at her suspiciously, you're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.